Love it. No, I carry that. Thank you. There's someone else that comes with multiple pins. I just don't know. You'll have the body checker and you run out of the pen and a critical time ends out with your
There's one of them left up on the thing. As long as it's for one of the ordinances, it will be open to public comment. Oh, that's so confusing. That whole thing is getting. No, this is great. This works.
I don't want there to be too much.
Don, I've said it before and I stand by it. Whenever you leave the meeting, it does really smooth.
He looked at the.
We're going to knock on wood and say.
He looked at the agenda and the social media. I'm like, I'm sick.
Coming down with a curve.
I was just teasing Kaiser.
I have a cold, but I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm at the tag. So not I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, this September 5th, 2017. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we continue, Trustee Bornstein, you had an announcement you would like to make?
Yeah, about a month or two ago, we were fortunate enough to name a street off one of our prior officers, Kevin Swenson. Kevin's been ill for the past couple of years. On Monday, Kevin was admitted into hospice. And his wife wanted me to share with everybody because he's been very close to the town. And just thought maybe we could take 10 seconds and just say a little prayer for him and Claudia and the whole family and wish them the best in this rough and trying time.
Mr. Bishop, would you take the roll, please? Or, excuse me, Ms. Hogan, will you take roll?
Mayor Kaiser noted absent. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Here.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Goodman?
Here.
Trustee Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Medlicott?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Before us, we have an agenda. Any modifications for the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to move item number 7, the resolution pertaining, the resolution pertaining to the standards of conduct for elected officials, to move that to a discussion item rather than a vote for a resolution. I feel that there's much need for further discussion and probably some further direction to our staff as well.
I'll second it.
Ms. Hogan? Do we need roll call?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Goodman?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Where would you like that to be placed on the agenda?
We keep it at the same spot, just as a discussion item rather than a vote for a proposed resolution.
So
Item 7.
after the presentations, before the ordinance?
I'd say after the ordinances is fine, as far as.
Leave it where it is.
Leave it where it is.
I know, he's changing it from resolution.
We also have a consent agenda. Any modifications or an approval for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Goodman?
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes. First item of business is the proclamation proclaiming September 30th through October 8th as Creek Week 2017. Larry Small and Allison Clute.
That's your voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Trustees, thank you for having us here this evening, and thank you for your proclamation declaring Creek Week a monument. This is a big event for the district, the entire watershed. We have 10 communities participating this year. Woodland Park is the community outside of the district, and well, actually we have 11. Teller County is also participating beyond Woodland Park. So this event is growing thanks to Allison and her team, and we appreciate the town of Monument's support, both in contribution to Creek Week and for your participation in creating a community outreach in support of Creek Week. So I'll let Allison take over. She's the chair of the Creek Week committee, and she can give you some of the facts associated with it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Small. Good evening. Allison Clute. I'm the chair of the Creek Week Committee. I am the Fountain Creek Watershed Project Manager for Colorado Springs Utilities. Utilities is one of over 25 partners this year that have made this the 4th annual Creek Week cleanup throughout the watershed. As Mr. Small mentioned, this is becoming a bigger and bigger event each year. This year we have a goal of engaging 3,000 citizens in removing litter from our watershed. It not only beautifies the wonderful environment that we already live in, but it is a way for citizens to give back. In a matter of just a few hours, there's a lot that can be accomplished. Over the last 3 years, we've engaged 5,000 people to remove 30 tons of litter. And that's a huge accomplishment, and people look forward to this as an annual event. So we do appreciate Monuments participation. In your folders, you'll see the 30+ events that we have scheduled. So it's now actually Creek Month. We have, not only can you get out there and make a difference with your community cleaning it up, but you can raise a glass to clean water through the new Fountain Creek Brew Shed Alliance program. This is the first in the state of Colorado. We're very proud to engage our breweries in kind of helping spread the word about watershed health and how we can engage our citizens that are not only residents, but those who are on their brewery tour throughout Colorado. We also have a special soccer game. We're going to be featured at the September 7th Switchbacks, their final game. They're going to be recognizing Creek Week as an asset to the community, and we invite everyone to participate. Everyone can find out more information from our website, fountaincreekweek.com. And we also have a quick 30-second video that, are we ready to play that?
Sure.
Okay, excellent. This was put on by El Paso County as one of their partnership items.
We can all lean over.
30th through October 8th. This 9-day event happens each fall, bringing
Sorry about that. There we go.
6,000 waterways during the 4th annual Creek Week cleanup happening September 30th through October 8th. This 9-day event happens each fall, bringing citizens in El Paso, Teller, and Pueblo counties together to remove trash and debris from our land and water. Create a creek crew with your family, friends, coworkers, or church group, and make a big difference for our communities and the environment. Let's all work together to make our waterways cleaner and safer for humans and wildlife to enjoy during Creek Week.
Great. So you saw that clip at the end was our sponsors, and we're extremely proud of all the support we're getting. And this year we're thankful to the Town of Monument. You did support us with a $500 cash sponsorship. So that goes directly back to the program for our bags, our gloves, our goodies that we provide for our volunteers. So we invite everyone to come join us to Creek Week this year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So let it be known that the Board of Trustees of Monument Colorado hereby proclaim September 30th through October 8th, 2017 as Creek Week in Monument, and encourage our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in Creek Week activities. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a recognition of our public works staff. Dion Arleon, President of Tri-Lakes Little League, and Mr. Tharnish.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight we're going to represent or recognize a few of our public works staff over this last summer who put a lot of time and design into creating some Little League fields that this town seriously needed. And I'm going to call a couple of guys up that are here now to get recognized for that, and I'm going to turn it over to Dion Arellano, who's associated with the Tri-Lakes League. So Jimmy, you out here? Come on up. And Robbie, come on up. And with that, I'll turn this over to Dion.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Dion Arellano. Tough name to pronounce, I know. I just want to get that clarified. I am the president of Tri-Lakes Little League, and I have been involved with youth sports, and I recognize some faces. For the last 5 or 6 years, I have young kids, and they're growing up. And about a year and a half ago, I became president of the Little League, and we have about 450 kids that register and play in our spring season, which is quite a few kids, and as you can imagine, it takes up quite a few fields. And so we had some issues with cleanup on some current fields and building a new field, and I had approached Mr. Tharnish about potentially helping collaboratively building a new field, which we did at Dirty Woman Park together, and cleaning up the fields the Old Santa Fe Trail, on Old Denver Highway, There's baseball fields there. The town helped to put in sod and grass the outfield. And this is the first complete year, and I will tell you, I just left practice just now, and our kids love it, right? The grass was a big deal. And so we appreciate everything that the town has done, specifically everything that the Public Works Department has done, and these two gentlemen that have helped us for sure. I've worked with them and met with them, and we just wanted to take the time to say thank you to the town, to the Public Works and the individuals, and present a plaque of a team that we put the town of Monument as a sponsor because of the help that they did, and want to present that to you guys as a token of appreciation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have a presentation, Tri-Lake Silver Alliance. Melissa Evans Bagnall.
This is my first time here, so I'm going to have to use the clicker. Do I sit here?
She's got it for you right here.
Okay. Thank you.
Watch the 17 wires on your way.
Okay. I'm control myself.
You can't go wrong.
Is it best to sit here, or does it matter?
Wherever you'd like.
Okay, I'll sit here then. When I'm clicking, should I point straight at the, does it matter? Okay. All right, terrific. Okay, thank you. I'm Melissa Bagnall, and as you guys know, I'm the president of the board of directors for the Tri-Lake Silver Alliance. We operate the senior center located on Lewis Palmer High School campus, the modulars that are near the stadium, and we also operate the thrift store that's just down the road here on 755 105 Highway. I'm here tonight to present information regarding the local senior center, who we were, who we are now, who we want to be in the future, and to put it bluntly, I'm here to ask for your help. We are a 501c3 with the mission to provide service and advocacy for the senior citizens in the community in the areas of wellness, education, and quality of life. I promise I'm not going to read all of these slides. I'm going to do an overhead. So many of you might have known us from Health Advocacy Partnership as HAP, which we were until about January of 2016. At that time, our purpose was to feed senior citizens a meal a couple times a week. We were operated with a volunteer army doing that, and then that was taken over by Silver Key organization, and that continues today. However, we're not part of that anymore. That's taken care of by the Mountain Community Mennonite Church, where transportation is provided. We do go over there and provide bingo once a month just to help with entertainment. But when the organization left to go do the feeding through Silver Key, we became Tri-Lake Silver Alliance, and we were renamed at that time. And the focus was shifted from serving meals to operating a senior center, and at that time the board before hired an independent contractor named Sue Walker, and she manages our programs at the senior center, and our goal was to grow those and make that an active senior center. The HAP thrift store was moved to a better location across the street, larger square footage, nicer location, with the plan to make more money, and which is a large funder for us. I became the president in April 2016, and as luck would have it, the entire board vacated due to their terms, so their term limits. So who we are now? Well, we are now an active, involved board of directors. Myself, Colette Martin, Dorothy Silvanic, Maria Zambori, Marianne Black. And it's important to know that we are the only senior center serving senior citizens between Colorado Springs and Castle Rock. So we are the only one in this northern part of the county. Now, we are a location that is used for people that might not be able to join the country clubs, the YMCAs. They don't have the money to go to the assisted living. And we're providing exercise classes, social groups, educational workshops, senior service organization events, organized day trips, and much more. We are operated about 99% volunteer. The only person that we pay is that part-time program director. Otherwise, everybody is volunteer army running this senior center. We've been blessed with donations of avid supporters. So every year we tend to know who's going to give us some money, but overall we do not know from the beginning of each year if we're going to be funded for that year, which you can see would be very precarious, and every year we wake up wondering if we're going to keep these doors open. But we are blessed with businesses that give us gift card services and money. We are also a group that operates a quality and profitable thrift store that, again, is only run by volunteers. And this thrift store, any of the profits after we clear our overhead, is 100% supporting the senior center. We're also publishers of a fantastic newsletter. You guys have a digital version in your materials. This monthly newsletter is titled Senior Beat. It's distributed to over 700 people, either in print, digital, or email. And we are dedicated to keeping it in print. A lot of people have said don't do it because of budget. However, this is one way that our clients can actually see their calendars, get information and topics, and so we are dedicated to do that. And we drop them around to businesses around town, which make it a great advertising and communication tool for us. We're also, the center is also a facilitator for educational workshops and provide locations, free location for organizations to serve their purpose of senior citizens. For example, Pikes Peak Hospice comes in and gives educational workshops. We have a MindFit series for telling seniors about Alzheimer's, as well as just tricks to keep the mind sharp. We do Medicare education, identity theft. Glen Eagle Seratoma has worked there for doing Hear It workshop. And also visiting nurses comes there for foot care. Recently we had the Parkinson's support group come use our facility. However, very quickly, within about 2 weekends, they had to move. They had such a large group of people, we could not host them any longer. So they moved off to, I think, a church. We also do Red Hat Society, CPR courses, and the list goes on, and the demand is growing. One of our goals was to create a partnership with other organizations that service the senior citizen population and allow them to use our facilities for free. So who we are now, also statistics. It's important to know when I took over a year and a half ago, we didn't have any statistics about who uses the senior center. So we at this time number crunched a bunch of sign-in sheets, and this is what we learned as of May 31st. We have 375 unduplicated visitors. Again, that's unduplicated. That's not how many people are coming through on a weekly basis. We deliver 123 health and wellness, which are exercise courses, 126 social events, bingo cards, women's tea, 68 educational workshops, and 57 arts and crafts music courses. On an average, about 70 people, seniors, come through the doors every single week. They use it for a place to hang out, cards, and just for community. Due to the increased participation, and this is all building up to need, we actually had to increase our hours. Normally we were open from 1 to 4 Monday through Friday. We have now opened from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday, as well as on Saturday and Sunday. This does cause a challenge because we are in the parking lot with the high schoolers. So now we've got seniors and high schoolers and a whole group trying to get in and out of the senior center right there. Our other concern with being at the school is eventually, as the area grows, we have no idea when they're going to want those buildings back. And when they say yes, they want them back, then we have no place to go in this community. An idea on our finances, same thing. We've been working hard this year to streamline our finances, not only for our grant purposes, but in order to talk to people about funding. We currently have an operating budget about $68,000, and our revenue is, we've so far been able to meet that at $69,000. Again, the expenses are fixed, our revenue is a variable, and we are just at the mercy of every organization continuing to donate to us. And we do have a few core people that we depend on, but they are also depending on getting their funds in and how their fundraisers go. However, I'd like to point out, if you see there, the Town of Monument is one of our donators. Every year you donate $3,000. This is just a very few mentions of people. We have other people that are private donors. One of the key things to know is that when HAP shifted its mission from serving meals to running a senior center, the funding went away because we don't qualify for that type of funding, and very few grants are available to us, government grants or federal grants, as far for running a senior center. So again, we are just at the mercy of everybody else just annually donating to us. One of the things too I'd like to point out is we just have a gut instinct that there's more need than we can handle. We try our best and we could grow a lot more. We have people that come visit our senior center, but it's not a very enticing and nice place to hang out when they're comparing us to Colorado Springs or Castle Rock. So we lose a lot of people that are leaving. And then also we have people that we know are shut-ins that we have no way to get them there. And not only from my own speaking to people in the community center, but also just being out in the community and talking to people all the time. So there is a lot of room for growth, as well as I attended a lecture from a demographer from the state of Colorado pointing out the growth of the senior citizens 65 to 75 in Colorado and El Paso County. And I'd be happy to send anyone that slideshow. I asked her for it to talk to you guys about. But in essence, one of the highest growing population is that 65 to 75 age range. And the reason that is not that people are moving here, it's because they've been here and now they've aged in place. So that is one of the largest growing populations in the area. And again, I'll be happy to send that information to anyone who'd like it. So finally, who do we want to be? Our vision and the seniors' hope. Well, ultimately, please remember, I'm here speaking on behalf of the Senior Citizen Center and the people that I've talked to around the community. So our sights and goals are set on our own Tri-Lake Senior Community Center, similar to what's in Colorado Springs and Castle Rock. And I'm asked all the time by seniors, are we even in consideration for the town of Monument or any local government that would provide us our own building and help fund us and help operate us, because they are well aware how hard we work every year, every month to make sure that they have the money to keep the programs going. And we're trying not to charge them really much at all. Really, maybe if they charge for anything, it's for the monthly trips because we have to pay for the buses. So that would be one question. I hope to at least plant the seed and through 2018 work with you or learn from you if there's any opportunity at all for us to have a permanent building somewhere here in town. In the short term, also, of the three mentioned, Castle Rock, Colorado Springs, and us, again, we are the only ones that need to go out and get funds and is run by volunteers. They're all run by the city or the county, and they're run by professionals and paid employees. So currently, looking, to work in 2018, but the town of Monument now gives us $3,000, which, as I showed you, is not a lot compared to what our budget is. So our request would be is that you would consider to increase your donation to us for operating funds anywhere from $12,000 or more, or what could be increased. That would help us a lot to know that we have some money each year to service this senior population. And as the area grows, we get calls all the time wanting to know more about, do we have a senior citizen center in town? Because they don't want to drive to Colorado Springs, especially when the winter comes around. So it would be a tremendous help. You've already donated $3,000 this year, and if there would be any way to have an increase for the latter half of the year, that would help us a lot finishing off the 2017 year. So in the future, what we still are committed to do is maintain our quality programs, our newsletter, our educational workshops, and build our partnerships. We have plans to increase our volunteers and hopefully at some point adding transportation. We were offered a wonderful gift from Bethesda of a 15-passenger van. We had to decline it because we got too nervous that if there were any reason that that van needed some money from us, we would not be able to afford it, and we just didn't feel that was a financially responsible on our part. So we did decline that. But at some point we hope to get one because, again, as I mentioned, we do know there's a lot of shut-ins that just can't even get to the high school. And then finally, what's in the short notice here is that we're going to be improving the current facilities with the school district's approval. We're going to try, it's a very outdated looking modular building. I don't know if any of you have ever been there. I'm welcome to give a tour. But we want to paint it. We're going to take out the decorations and put in some new decorations, do some facility improvements, and just make it more appealing because we have several people that have left, not people that have been going there for years, they're dedicated, but have come to check us out, and it's just not what they where they want to be hanging out at the time. So, on behalf of Tri-Lake Silver Alliance community, I wanted to thank you for your time to listen, learn, and consider our requests for increased annual funding, as well as the future of a Tri-Lakes Senior Citizen Community Center. And I would ask that if you have any donations and want to shop, please support our thrift store just down the way. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the board?
I do have a question. How much time do you spend annually or monthly on fundraising?
Oh, well, it's pretty much myself and one other lady, and I probably go speak, I would say probably at least 15 to 20 hours a week. I do have a full-time job. I'm a realtor in the area, and she helps me write the grants, and so it's a lot of time as far as fundraising there. It goes in cycles. We have an Excel spreadsheet of people that we try and hit that we've known who's done it in the past, but preparing the grants each year takes a lot of time. And so that's a rough estimate. I probably spend 10 to 20 hours a week just volunteering my time running the organization as well as the donating.
How many grants are written? I'm familiar with grant writing. How many grants?
Well, and we call them grants. You may just call them like entering, but I would, off the top of my head, I'm going to say about 5 are written, but a lot of the local organization like Kiwanis, Glen Eagle, Saratoga, Tri-Lakes Women's Club, I consider those grants as well. So with them added, probably 8 to 10 grants. We are trying to, one of our options was, or our goals was to get our statistics and to get our budget in line and detailed so we're trying to find larger government federal grants to really just kind of carry us as much as we can. So we're not constantly going after all these little companies and small grants and just get one big, sponsor, if you will.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I just want to thank you for what you do, being quite familiar with serving the senior population. I know it's very difficult to do everything that you do with the little budget that you do have, so thank you for you and your team and what you've done for our senior community. And you're absolutely correct, the rapid aging of our current populations. The baby boomers are getting older.
Yeah.
El Paso County is leading the nation as far as the fastest growing county of 65 and older. So we will see a large need for this, not only now, but well into the future. So thank you again for everything you're doing.
Yeah, we're 61%. And also, if anyone's interested, if you have a digital version, if you'd like to see a hard copy of our senior beat, it shows you our calendars. It shows you what information we're delivering to the seniors, not only for us, but also the ones receiving meals. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pengel. It now takes us to ordinance number 152017, an ordinance amending chapter 9.08 and 17.48 of the Monument Municipal Code prohibiting fireworks. Ms. Corley.
Thank you. At the last meeting, the board asked that I remove any reference to possession of fireworks. I've amended the ordinance to delete any reference to possession. So now it just refers to use and sale of fireworks in the town.
This is a public hearing item. Would anybody from the public like to speak for or against this item? In that case, I'll bring it back to the board for board questions or comments. Chief, I have a question. According to the Colorado Revised Statute 1228-101, this includes, permissible includes audible fireworks. Do we plan on ticketing every 8-year-old with a box of Fun Snaps?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
No. You're awake. Absolutely not.
Do we have any way to enforce this?
Well, typically on July 4th, there's a whole lot of calls that come out on fireworks, and almost all police departments I'm aware of have taken a stand with dispatch to tell them air it, don't even send an officer unless there is a real public safety issue of the mortars going off and things like that. They just air it. If we're available, we drive by. But they all know what we look like. When we drive by, what do people do? They scamper in the house, and we find nothing. So our ability to enforce it is pretty limited, to be truthful with you. But if we do find it and it's a public danger, we'll enforce it. A lot of times we'll just confiscate it, have them dump it in the water. So
And this is
catching
the
people with sparklers, though, is going to be pretty difficult. But if it's an ordinance, we'll do our best to enforce it.
this is the third time this has been brought up. Have we seen anybody from the fire department or anybody in support of this? Okay. We have state regulations in place for what fireworks we're allowed to use and what and where. El Paso County also regulates what we have as far as fire danger and when we can use them. I don't see anything that this ordinance does good for the community. Any other questions or comments for the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 15-2017, ordinance amending chapters 9.08 and 17.48 of the Monument Municipal Code to prohibit fireworks.
Second.
Mrs. Hogan?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
No.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
No. That passes 4-2. Next ordinance, we have ordinance number 162017, an ordinance approving a rezoning, sketching plan, and final plat for Wolf Creek business. Ms. Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the board. You'll see quite a bit of me tonight, so I'll get going. The first item is a rezoning sketch plan and plat for the Wolf Business Park. Before you is ordinance 16-2017. So to highlight where we are speaking about tonight, this is an aerial photo of the site. There's this is just north of this location here on Beacon Light Road on the east side, between Beacon Light Road and I-25, north of the existing mobile home park. So you can see pretty much the entire area shown in this photo, and the property on the west side of Beacon Light Road is currently vacant, and all of this area is currently vacant. So a summary of this project, again, this is for a Wolf Business Park. It's a little over 14 acres included. The items included in this particular hearing are a rezoning. It's currently zoned PCD, I'm sorry. And the Monument Municipal Code does require it to be rezoned to PD because it is currently not platted and there has not been a certificate of occupancy issued. There's also a sketch plan which outlines the uses in the proposed PD. Those are basically industrial and warehouse type uses with outdoor storage. And then finally there is a plat for the property that would create 7 lots as well as a drainage tract. And there's also an access easement to an unplatted portion of land on the east side where that existing digital sign is located. This item was heard before the Planning Commission in August 9th. Okay, so the first item is the rezoning. As I mentioned, it's currently zoned PCD. The Monument Municipal Code refers to this as a prior zoning district, not one that we currently zone to, and the language outlines that it shall be rezoned to PD, again, if it hasn't been platted and a certificate of occupancy issued. That is why that item is included tonight. Related to the PD zoning is a sketch plan. This is where we designate the allowable uses for the site. The applicant is requesting industrial warehouse with outdoor storage. This is consistent with our 2017 comprehensive plan, which outlines this area as light industrial. And just to clarify, again, this is sort of the front end of these types of projects. At the final PD site plan stage on a specific lot, when we get to, that's really where we get to the details and we can talk about screening and landscaping and those types of things. So here's the actual plat. I know it is very difficult to see. Essentially, all access for this property would be off of Wolf Court. There's no direct access off of Beacon Light Road. So again, it creates 7 developable lots, as well as Tract A, which is there on the south side. And that Tract A is for drainage and utility purposes only, so it won't be developed. The lot sizes range from about 1 to a little over, about 1 to 2 acres each. And then, as I mentioned, there is an existing digital sign, I'm sure everyone's aware of, that is located adjacent to this. It is not included in this project at all, but as a part of this plat, they are including an access easement. It's highlighted there in red. It's very small, just to be sure that we aren't creating a landlocked parcel for that existing sign. As a part of this, we have spoken with the property owners of the sign land, as well as the sign company, and let them know that this is going on and that they are being assured access. We've also encouraged them to go ahead and plat that to sort of legalize their forever access, that this access easement is included and would provide that. That was a quick summary. The Planning Commission does recommend approval of the rezoning, the sketch plat, the sketch plan, and the final plat for this business park, based on the finding that the proposed development complies with the standards and criteria for approval. And staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Question?
Questions before we go into discussion?
Absolutely. I just want to clarify the intent and what we're doing with this specific ordinance 16-2017. To clarify, what we're doing is essentially what is required as far as updating from an outdated code to the new PD type code. What we're not doing with this particular ordinance is approving or denying a specific business or anything of that sort. We're simply updating the zoning code of this particular plot of parcels.
That's correct. So zoning it per that requirement, the sketch plan will outline your uses, and then the plat. But each particular lot will come in for a final PD site plan. That's when we will have a specific user. We will have exact square footages of buildings, landscaping, parking, signage, all of those types of details.
And that's as we may see later on in this
Exactly.
evening's agenda.
Yes.
So I just wanted to clarify that what we're doing with this specific one is essentially updating the zoning code versus addressing a specific request for usage for a specific business.
Correct.
Okay.
So in other words, for any property in this area to develop, it will have to be, we would be here to rezone to PD per that language in the code.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes. I'd just like to understand, does our planning guidance include any distance or interference in a residential environment as a result of the kind of zoning change we're talking about here?
There is not specific language of a required buffer or something along those lines for a PD, because PD could be anything. So, but at the time of a final PD site plan, we would certainly have those conversations about what's adjacent, what type of screening does it need, what type of setbacks perhaps, or something like that. So there's not something specifically outlined in the code for a PD zone, but we would certainly talk about the surrounding uses and those types of things as each lot developed.
Okay, so what I just heard you say is, is there something you want to say more?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. What I just heard you say then is you do in fact intend to solicit feedback and be concerned about something like a mobile park, mobile home park, residential area, which is close to where this place is going to go, and want to understand the concerns, understand what our guidance requires, and allow the people the opportunity to ask questions,
make comments, et cetera, so that you have interaction with the community, which has direct interest here.
Certainly.
Okay?
So with every lot, that would be the case.
Okay.
For typically on a PD site plan stage, because that's where we can really talk about what user will be in there, you know, the size of the building, where it will be located. So absolutely, those, each one will come back before the planning commission, before you all as public hearings, absolutely.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
Any additional board questions? Seeing that this is a public hearing, I'll now open it up to the public. Would anybody like to speak against this item? Seeing none, would anybody like to speak for this item? Sir?
Oh, over here, okay.
If you wouldn't mind stating your name and
Sure.
Mr. Bender?
Yes, I'm John Bender. I'm here representing the Tri-Lakes Land Use Committee. We are formed by the county to enforce this, which is a little out of date, but it is the small area comprehensive plan for the entire Tri-Lakes area. And our only concern on this, I spoke with Mr. Manning this morning, and he helped me understand the process going forward. Our only concern is what's called the visual overlay in this, which is if you're going south on I-25 north of Monument Hill and you look to the west, you have one perception. And when you come down on the south side of Monument Hill, you look to the west. We want to preserve that view as much as possible. And what Mr. Manning said was that going forward for the site plan stage for each lot in this property, specifically the ones right along the east edge of this property, we would like to see a berm that would tend to hide all the businesses from the view on I-25. And I just stopped there on the way here. There is about a 6 or 7 foot berm along part of the exit ramp for the way station. It's right at the very northeast corner of this. And we would like to promote that as visual screening for the entire property all the way down to the mobile home park. If that is not a part of the sketch plan process, but more of the final plat process, we can agree with that, but I just wanted to make that statement to you and see if you had any questions about that.
Thank you, Mr. Bender.
All righty.
Would anybody else like to speak for this?
Good evening, I'm Steve Hammers from Hammers Construction. I'm with the applicant. And we agree, and we do believe that when we get to that each individual phase, then we'll take a hard look at their screening. And one thing about the site is it's lower from the highway. Beacon Light's a lot lower. And when you drive by at 65, what's interesting, or 75, it's really what you see. So the screening is going to be important. We looked at that. We have some really nice renderings that we put together to visualize that, so we could do a good job at presenting that. So I'd just like to thank you guys for the opportunity to get in front of you, and if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Hammond.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak for this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Seeing none, a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 16-2017, an ordinance approving a rezoning sketch plan and final plat for Wolf Business Park.
Ms. Hogan, would you take roll?
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance number 17-2017, an ordinance approving the final plan development site plan for Tri-Lakes Collision. Ms. Jones.
Hello again. Okay, we are now discussing a final PD site plan. This is for Tri-Lakes Collision, Ordinance 17, 2017. This plot should look very familiar. So the plot that you all just saw and voted to approve, we are now discussing Lot 7. It's highlighted in blue on the screens. So this is a proposal for a final PD site plan for an actual project for this site. This would be the first, obviously the first development in this project. I'd like to point out again, the access will be off of Wolf Court. The cul-de-sac will extend southward. There will be no direct access off of Beacon Light Road. And then directly south of this lot, this proposed development, is that tract A that I mentioned, which is for drainage. So again, that is a fairly large area that will not be developed. It'll remain open for drainage purposes and utilities. So here's the aerial photo of the same area I just described. Again, the lot is shown in yellow on this aerial photo, and then that drainage tract is highlighted with a dashed line. So I wanted to highlight that that drainage tract does serve as a bit of a buffer between the existing mobile home park to the south and this particular lot. So another summary, like I've mentioned, Lot 7. The applicant, the proposed use is Tri-Lakes Collision. They're an auto body repair shop. They currently have several locations within the Tri-Lakes area. So they're proposing to construct a approximately 10,000 square foot building on that 2-acre site. As we just discussed, again, the Wolf Business Park, this would be an allowable use. The site would include the building, a paved, fenced yard area behind the building. And again, this was heard before your Planning Commission on August 9th. Very similar, so I'm going to the site layout for this project. As I mentioned, the access is at the north east corner of Lot 7. It is off of Wolf Court. It's shown with the green arrow. The building is highlighted in yellow just for ease of you to be able to see it. They're proposing a fence. It is shown in red dots, the current proposed location. There is a recommended condition of approval to move a portion of that fence in order to utilize landscaping on the outside of the fence to provide additional screening and buffering there from the residents to the south, as well as while you're driving on Beacon Light Road. And so will highlight where that's proposed to be moved here in just a moment. We do have a couple renderings provided by the applicant, so I wanted to be sure and highlight those for you. Beacon Light Road obviously is shown there on the bottom right of your slide, and you can see on this, I know it's difficult, but you can see on the slide where the fence location is currently outside of the landscaping, and again, we're proposing to move that in. But it does give you a bit of a feel for the site, how the building will be situated. And then there is quite a bit of landscaping there shown between the site and Beacon Light Road. Again, with no access or driveway, that allows that entire area to be landscaped. Specifically speaking on the landscaping, because this is a PD zone and has a bit of flexibility, we've worked with the applicant to get to a landscape plan that we staff believes is acceptable and promotes what it needs to in this case in order to screen and provide an attractive site from the roadways. Again, landscaping is concentrated there along Beacon Light Road. There's approximately 26,000 square feet of landscaping, including all of those different items, rock and trees, and they're actually preserving some existing trees that are out there, ornamental grasses, etc. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things with this slide. Again, this is illustrating the proposed building, the proposed fence location in the red dots, and then where it changes to yellow, which I realize now is very difficult to see, is where we have recommended a condition to move that interior so that the landscaping is prominent on the outside of the fence to, again, help with the screening and the buffering. And then an additional condition was added by the Planning Commission where they wanted to add 5 additional trees along that southeastern corner of the site just to be sure that there was adequate screening and buffering there. And those additional trees are shown on the slide in green. So I have a couple renderings of the building. The front, if you will, of the building is on the west side facing Beacon Light Road. That side of the building does feature a stone veneer as well as stucco and metal panels along the top. You do have their bay doors, obviously, for their business, and then their office door is along the front side as well. The east elevation, much more simple. It's got 2 colors of their metal panels. There was quite a bit of discussion with the applicant regarding the architecture on the eastern and southern portions of the building. And then just through those discussions, staff and the applicant sort of came to the conclusion that any proposed treatments that we had worked through would be screened by the fence. And therefore, they are included as proposed. And the north elevation, which would be visible from the entrance from Wolf Court, does also utilize the stucco materials. And then again, the south elevation, which is adjacent to the drainage tract, and it will mostly be screened by the fence and the landscaping. Therefore, again, the staff worked with the applicant and decided that any additional materials, adding the stucco or the rock on those elevations, would most likely be entirely screened. Then a couple additional site renderings from the applicant. This is sort of looking back south at the site where you can see we'll have a nice amount of landscaping along the Beacon Light side. And then again, landscaping, and you can see a bit of the building is also quite screened. And the Planning Commission did recommend approval with conditions, as mentioned, feeling that it meets the standards and criteria for approval. And I do want to outline the conditions that are recommended. That the fencing shall be relocated inside the landscape area in order to have the landscaping visible from off-site. Provides additional screening and buffering. And then the condition recommended by the Planning Commission, 5 additional trees must be added to the landscape area at the southeast corner of the site. And then a standard condition that approval is subject to minor technical correction to the satisfaction of staff. And staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Koopman.
I have a handful of questions.
Okay.
Start with the traffic impact. So you said that the direct access to this particular business wouldn't be directly off of Beacon Light, so off of, was it Wolf
Court?
Wolf Court. What kind of impact would not only this specific business, but I guess in general what we're talking about, what kind of traffic do we have coming in?
Sure. Well, a couple of things about that. There was a traffic impact study provided. Essentially, I'm going to do a very poor job of summarizing because I'm not a traffic engineer. Essentially, that it is at acceptable levels with this development, but it does mention that as additional development occurs, whether it's on this side or on the other side, you know, when we're talking about the 4th or 5th or 6th lot, there certainly may be some impacts that need to be mitigated. However, it did not conclude that it needed to be at this time. I also mentioned that this portion of Beacon Light Road is controlled by the county. The applicant did work with the county quite a bit, going back and forth about that access and some other issues, and the county did not have any concerns, again, for the traffic at this time.
And I appreciate hearing that about the county. So to clarify that, if traffic does become an issue, it's something we can't address here locally. It would be something we're going to have to bring to the table to the county to see if we can get some improvements with traffic.
That's my understanding.
All right. What about noise levels? What type of noise does a facility like this prevent?
I may defer to the applicant to give you specifics on their business operation. I would simply refer to, I know that there are other sections of the code that address acceptable noise levels and decibels and that type of thing. Fortunately, I'm not an expert on that. Chapter 8, I believe.
And we do have a new code enforcement team, so they can be looking out for noise levels, I'm sure.
But I will defer to the applicant to explain the details of their operation. I don't know.
I imagine you probably solicited community feedback. What were the thoughts and concerns of the residents who may be impacted by this particular site?
I would respond by saying the typical manner that we solicit input is through this public hearing process. So that this project did meet all of the code requirements for public notice. There were a number of residents, most of them are here tonight, who did speak at the Planning Commission meeting. They expressed various concerns, traffic being one of them, noise being one of them. Again, the Planning Commission heard their concerns and did recommend approval with those conditions that I mentioned.
And when it was approved by the Planning Commission, what was the vote tally on that? How many in favor and how many against, if you recall?
I apologize. I don't recall off the top of my head. I don't know if Mr. Manning recalls.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you recall the vote at the Planning Commission on this item?
6 in favor, 1 abstention.
For this specific site?
Yes, that's one recollection, yes.
And I would like verification of that. I had heard otherwise and would like to just clarify on record to get the actual information, of course. Do you recall any concerns of Planning Commission members who voiced concerns over this particular or maybe didn't vote in favor of?
Again, there was discussion. There was discussion about the fence material and there was discussion about the landscaping. The fence material condition was not voted on or seconded. I can't remember the exact details. It came up in discussion. The addition of the landscaping condition, again, there was discussion about that, and then that's what was moved forward as a part of their recommendation. I believe the vote was, I hate to disagree with Mr. Manning, I believe the vote was 5-2, but I can confirm and report back to you.
And I had read 4-3, but again, would like to, it wasn't overwhelming, and I would like to just clarify on record what exactly.
It was not unanimous. Certainly, I'm hearing 4-3. I apologize for not remembering those exact details. We do have, I do have notes on the meeting. I just did not look that up.
That's all right. I appreciate it. And lastly, really an observation I'd like to share, certainly something I've become more familiar with than I ever wanted to be with. That'd be Title 17 of Monument Town Code, which pertains specifically to our planning and our zoning and our laws and our code pertaining to that. And certainly looking at the intent and the purpose of the Title 17 in its entirety. And that's something that sticks out to me and is important to look at when evaluating requests such as this. And that intent and purpose is very specifically to promote the health, safety, convenience, order, prosperity, aesthetics, environmental quality, and general welfare of the present and future inhabitants of Monument, Colorado, specifically also to the PD Planned Development District. The intent is, of course, to lessen the burden of traffic on streets and highways and to conserve the value of land while also considering the following factors, which would be Monument's, of course, comprehensive plan, the compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods, traffic considerations, obviously the natural characteristics of the land, and then community need as well. So I think it's important to remind ourselves specifically what the intent and purpose of our town code is while evaluating things like this.
Do you have a question?
That was a statement.
Oh,
Thank you.
we're in questions. Any other questions from the board?
Well, yeah, again, it sort of builds off what Trustee Koopman just said. It would seem prudent that noise abatement aspects be considered the construction of a facility like this. It would seem prudent that environmental issues related to chemicals or paint that might be employed would be considered. Again, I feel that the process, everything you described, Ms. Jones, it's all according to Hoyle and it's moving forward. I think everything Trustee Koopman pointed out is also germane and important. I want to make sure that if we're going to err, let's err on the side of making sure that the people who live there are in fact protected and basically their property values are supportive. You know, I mean, we shouldn't be taking it away. So, again, thank you for your diligence, and I mean that sincerely. And I wanted to add those thoughts as well.
Sure. If I may report back on a couple of your comments about the noise and the chemicals and those types of things. Again, a lot of those issues did come up at the Planning Commission and were discussed as a part of the planning review process. You know, these projects, we did refer it to the fire department. They ultimately inspect and approve painting and those types of things. Obviously, there are state and federal regulations both at play. You know, I will somewhat assume that the applicant will speak to the extensive regulatory items that they are adhere to outside of our land development code. And so those are certainly all considered as well.
Okay, and again, you're going to be soliciting more interaction and feedback from the community as you move down the track here, right?
As far as with the additional lots, it would be the same process that we're going through. For this lot, this would be.
This is it.
This is it. That's correct.
Okay, so my earlier question basically pertained only till we got to this point of the agenda, and now we're doing it.
We're doing it for one lot, correct? Right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Ms. Jones, that took place at the Planning Commission also, right? That was an open hearing where
Yes.
people could express their views on it?
Yes, absolutely, and there were a number of comments provided.
Any further?
Yeah. I have a question. What is the fence height around this particular facility?
It's proposed to be 6 feet.
And what's the material? I know you mentioned material, but the actual material isn't
The
mentioned.
current proposed material is chain link with, I believe, dark green screening slats, and then obviously again, with the proposed condition to move it, there would be, again, landscaping in front of that along that south portion.
That's a concern, the density of the landscaping is a concern, because this is a collision repair center, and with lining up cars that have all collided at some point in time, it's pretty ugly.
Yes.
So we want to make sure all of that's really well hidden.
Absolutely.
So from pictures, I don't know necessarily if the landscaping is going to hide it. The fence certainly doesn't, but we definitely want to make sure the landscape's going to be hiding what's parked in the lot, waiting to be repaired.
Absolutely. And fence material is certainly something the board could discuss further. Again, it did come up at the Planning Commission, and then that did not make it into a recommended condition. But certainly, I know there was some discussion even with the applicant at the Planning Commission hearing about, you know, there's a variety of fencing options, so that's certainly something that you all may want to, you know, add an additional condition or speak with the applicant about, certainly.
Okay.
Couple questions. Do we have any ordinance or leverage in terms of landscaping for, not just this one, but any sort of development? Specifically, they build the project, landscaping is ancillary to the operation of the business, it doesn't add to the bottom line. It's really what we want as a community to screen it. And so it kind of gets pushed back to, back burner and gets slow lots.
As far as installation, is that what you're referring to? Certainly there are times, planning staff does work with our applicants and builders as far as the installation, obviously due to weather and things like that. They are required to put up a bond for landscaping. So we do have a guarantee that it will be installed. If it isn't, we do have the funds to hire someone to install that ourselves. So obviously here the weather can be an issue, but absolutely we do have that bond in place to take care of it. So I think that would probably be the best assurance that we have.
Maybe this is for Mr. Lowe or Tom. When do we own Beacon Lights? When does it become ours? At 105?
I believe, I apologize, Mr. Lowe. I
Oh,
believe
okay.
it is at the cemetery.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board?
Would there be a possibility before you open it up to the public to hear from the applicant, maybe to address some questions that have come up? Can we do that?
Ms. Corley, is that protocol?
I believe the applicant could respond to the public. Would that not work for you?
I'm in favor of.
To speak in favor of the project?
Can
And then
we,
they could address any concerns that the public has at the same time.
Okay.
Might make it
That
go a
would be
little
it.
bit
That would be
faster.
fine.
so can we open the public hearing with the applicant speaking first?
Sure. But do you not want the applicant to address the opposition to?
I'd like to hear
Okay.
just an overview from the applicant.
After public comments?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'll open this up to as a public hearing. Please remember, this is not a question and answer for the board. And please keep your comments original. If somebody's already stated something, please don't come up to state it again. Mr. Shannon, you were first with your opposition.
Okay. Can I sit here?
Yes, please, sign in and name and address.
Patrick Shannon, I own the trailer park, Monuments Only Trailer Park, for 24 years. And I've been exploring this for the past couple of weeks, and I cannot find another body shop next to a residential area. I'm talking right next door. I can't find one in El Paso County. The closest I came was on Woodman and around Power. There was 2 body shops and a stick-built residential area about the distance from the city hall to the cemetery. That's the closest I've got. I cannot find one right next to it. So I can't understand, and we all, by the way, we all support this, this development going north of us, okay? I mean, it's been vacant for a long time. I remember when they wanted to put a cement factory in there years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Okay, so so we support it, okay? But we can't figure out why you'd want to put a body shop next to a community of over 250 people with a lot of children and elderly people. We can't understand it. There's 7 plats. I can't understand why I can't move to one of the other plats. That's what we're trying to figure out here. Why would you put it right next to a community? I cannot find another example. And I looked around. I tried to correct myself and find one at least, but I cannot. Most body shops, if you look at the ones in the Tri-Lakes area, there's nobody living next to a body shop. Not even close. Maybe a half a block away. The ones I found down in El Paso County were really in industrial areas. I didn't see any residential areas at all. I mean, I just can't find one. So I can't understand why this has to be so close to a community that's been there for what, 40 years, 45 years, when it was an old KIA or old campground way back then. So that's one, I mean, that's one of the big questions in the park. When we put this, this petition out, and I asked people, and they said, they were shaking their heads, why? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to us at all. So, I mean, that's the main objection in, is the body shop, and the question is, I mean, the chemicals, the environmental, all that. Obviously, I talked to the county, and they said it's in Monuments Court. It's your decision, okay? But I can't understand why it has to be right next to a community like that. It doesn't make any sense to me. The second thing, talking about this fence, is the chain link fence. Now, there was a chain link fence on the cemetery for how many years? It finally came down, and that place looks great now, okay? Because they took that chain link fence down, okay? Chain link fence is cheap. It doesn't, I don't think it mixes with the community at all. I don't allow chain link fence on my property. When I bought that years ago, that one of the first things I did was get rid of the chain link. It just looks cheap. It's industrial, and it's only going to last. And that plastic strip, I saw that stuff for years. It always cracks in about 4 or 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
Okay, is that it? Okay, let me just get my name down here.
Anyone else like to speak against? Ma'am? Please step up here and name and address, please.
I'd like to know if there's been an environmental study for the watershed, the pollution downstream. And another part, in that track A, who's going to maintain that for like the mosquitoes and everything? If all this water's going to drain in there and all the oil from the cars that's going to rinse down the parking lot? Because it's right in our back door. And I guess that's my question about it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, it's Peggy Morse.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Would anybody else like to speak against this ordinance? Seeing no one, would anybody like to speak for this ordinance? Mr. Bender?
Good evening, Steve Hammers, Hammers Construction. I represent the applicant. I have Dan here as one of the owners of Tri-Lakes Collision. So I just want to address a few items. The Beacon Light Road past where we're at is owned by the county, and it's was voted on in 2012 for the priority aid projects. So it's in the 2016 major transportation corridor plans update. So eventually, at some point, PERT is going to update the road. It is currently a major collector, which has it's designed for 50 miles an hour, but it's really posted for 45. So we realize that there's going to be some slowdown in the monument side and then some speed up by the traffic. So we in the traffic report, we considered that. As far as approving this, we kind of went as best we could with the landscaping. We like the chain link fence. I've got 30 years as a builder. I've got 20 years of the same fence. It looks the same today as it does the day I built it. So if they're done correctly and they're done to code, they last an extremely long time. And by us moving the fence back at the yard and having the landscape in front, and we really did a good job, we believe, in screening it, and that was one of our major goals. And as far as the aesthetics, that was also thought through the process. The one thing that does happen in these body shops, not only do you guys get to approve it and your staff gets to review and approve it and we meet the ordinances, we go through RBD, Regional Building Department. So we're going to go through fire again, we're going to go through city sewer and water. We go through a really rigorous process in order to make code. And all these items are thought through, they're in the code books. Things like floor drains, it goes into a sandal interceptor before it goes into the monument process. Things like the drainage, erosion control, all that stuff is very well thought through. In order for us to even get a building permit, we have to go through that process and meet all this criteria and code. So it's not an easy process, an arduous process, and it does add a lot of cost, for the provider. We are in a light industrial zone. It was a light industrial zone. All we're doing is you guys are changing the zoning to make it a light industrial zone, and we're adding 2 more lots to the project. So I can tell you that, from my experience building these body shops, and we've done them in neighborhoods, we've done them in industrial parks, it's very tedious to get through. Things like the paint booths, things like where does the paint go in explosion-proof rooms. We have explosion-proof lights. We go through this lengthy code process to make sure that the public is protected. As far as the noise, one thing that you have is that you have a noise ordinance that we have to be in a light industrial zone from, I think, 7 to 7 at 70 dBA. And we meet that. The ambient noise out there from the highway is somewhere between 60 and 70 and upwards of 75. So as we have fence screening and distance from the other properties, we're mitigating the noise. And we're doing it during business hours. So as far as the DBA part of it, or the noise part of it, I've been through this process many, many times, and I can tell you the distance between the houses and this body shop and what you're hearing from the noise going by on I-25 and what you're hearing on Beacon Light when you combine it. I was out there this afternoon, and you can simply take a DBA meter that you can get on your phone, and we're talking at 60, 70 dBAs right now. So even if the room hushed up, this room would probably get no more than 50. So what we're saying is the distance and the noise and the sound, and then you add things like if it's winter, you're not going to be outside all the time in Colorado. You reduce that noise content. So I think that we've pretty much addressed all the issues. We think we did a really good job with it. You guys have got zoning and code and enforcement in place that if we don't, you're going to make sure we get it right. So that's the one beautiful thing about the process. We've went through it, we've achieved it, and we've done the best we could. So I want to turn it over to Dan. Unless you got some questions for me, he can answer more of the detailed question about the body shop operation.
Not necessarily the body shop, because I know they're regulated to the nth degree by EPA and us and whoever. But one of the specific questions is who is going to maintain that drainage? Is there going to be standing water? Is there going to be, I mean, those things get overgrown all the time, and then we have once you're fully built out, we have 7 individual builders or businesses. Well, no, it's your problem. I know it's your problem.
The beauty of that today is you do, anytime you develop more than an acre, you have a stormwater management plan. And then you have to file that with the state of Colorado. And then you have your own individual state or monitor that reviews that by the county. So before we can even start the project, we have to have our BMPs, our best management practices, in place. Then we also have to sign an agreement with the owner through the state that will protect what's on our site and also what's in that drainage ditch. So at this level, all that stuff has been thought through. The EPA has got a very good controlling handle on it. We have to do a very good job when we're building and maintaining these best management practices, but we also have to deliver it in the condition that meets these guidelines, but then it never goes away because that condition's always there. And if there's an issue, then you have the ability to go back in and fix it. So that's the one beauty of the stormwater management today. It's not like it was in the old days where they're really making it our responsibility and also then the owner's responsibility to maintain those things. So it's not like you could get away with, and you get fined. I have my own stormwater management guy on staff that does nothing but manage those practices every single day so that we don't get fined by the state or we get fined locally by the county. So it's very arduous, it's protected, and it's also protected once the owner takes over.
Just on top of that, retention ponds don't usually hold water anyways. It's usually empty except for when
you have a main event.
Yeah, you have water or heavy rain, or most of the time it stays empty, correct?
Correct, and your design is designed to take those heavy rains, so usually that drainage ditch is designed to take all those lots to make sure it's gonna work, and then there's always a margin of error, and then there's also, that erosion control factor, so they build these to make sure that they're not getting deteriorated. And there's the ability to go back in and fix them if it need to be.
Further questions from the board for the builder?
I'd like to know, do you have some sort of community interface? For example, you got a residential area that's concerned, obviously. Do you have regular contact? Do you have the opportunity for them to get back to you, point out things that you may not be aware of, things that you would want to deal with if you knew about it, rather than wait for the state to nail you or for the county to nail you?
Well, if we, in other words, during the construction process, is that what you're speaking to?
Yes.
Certainly. I mean, if there's any issues during that time, be more than happy to call us. We've been doing this for 30 years in this community, and we're here to stay. So one thing I'm going to tell you about us is we're very cognizant about our sites. We want them clean. Yeah, I can tell you there's going to be noise during the construction day. I can't help that. Right. But we're going to be we're not going to be pouring concrete at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be making sure that the dirt and dust is kept to a minimum. And we have to do that in our best management practices as well. And we're not going to allow dirt going out in Beacon Light. And if it does, we have to clean it up. We also have to provide tracking mats for that as well. So if there's any issues, I'd be more than happy for the community to call us, call me personally, because we'll address it.
Well, again, I think that's a super attitude. If I were living in that community, I hear what you're saying. You've got credibility. You've got a record. There are, in fact, many, many controls and oversights. If they have the ability to be able to contact, I would hope that they would take advantage of that opportunity, that offer, and deal with someone that cares. And it sounds like they want this done right and not to ignore the people in that community. And I think that's marvelous.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. And the gentleman, Mr. Shannon, I think you asked, and I'd be curious why that particular parcel out of the 7 parcels there? Is there something that makes that parcel versus the other 6 more appealing to the entity that you wish to put there?
It was definitely the location, and they wanted to be in that very prominent corner coming in, and that was the second lot back. So that was the corner that they wanted. They wanted to be on Beacon Light. The other 2 lots were too small and had too much terrain issues. So as we evaluated and looked at it, that was the best location. If we'd have moved them up closer to the interstate, we'd have had more earthwork, because once we get into the PDs, when we come back, those have more terrain issues, so we're gonna be cutting deeper into the banks. So as a cost issue, a positioning issue, being on Beacon Light, that was the best lot.
Excellent, thank you for answering.
Okay, I'll close the public portion of this and bring it back to the board. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments by the board, discussion?
Pro Tem Wilson, just want to thank you for allowing me to say my comment in the question section. Appreciate that. To reiterate my comment, again, you know, I ask myself, does this follow the intent and purpose of Title 17 of our town code? And that's something that I take to heart, especially the terms prosperity and aesthetics.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just like to see the chain link fence well covered, well concealed with landscaping. I personally don't think they really go with the area, and I don't think they're that attractive. So I think it'd be nice to see some really rock solid, pretty landscaping, thick landscaping to hide that fence, if the fence isn't going to change to something that's aesthetically pleasing, like rock wall or things that are like the town of Monument.
Just to add to that, I agree with you 100%, and maybe based on if we vote in approval, that would be a contingent just to address that, or it would have to be.
So, Ms. Jones, can we add an additional, would that be an additional condition or a continuation of the fencing condition?
I would think you would want to add a separate condition, either defining a fence material or outlining landscaping, depending on which way you want to go. Absolutely, we can add a 4th condition, is not a problem.
Trustee Elliott, would you like to add an additional condition for the fencing?
Yes, and actually, I'm not sure which way it should go. If we could have 2 options to look at: additional or alternative fence material, or landscaping that will hide the chain link fence. If those could be 2 alternatives to look at, and decide on one.
Okay, is that a decision that you would be comfortable with staff working with the applicant to make that decision, or is that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board is in agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 17-2017, and ordinance approving the final plans development site plan for a Tri-Lakes collision.
Second. I'm sorry. Second.
Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Vandercut?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
No.
Mayor Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. Next on the agenda, we have ordinance number 18-2017, an ordinance approving a rezoning, final plat, and final plan development site plan for a pilot travel center. Ms. Jones.
Hello again, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the board.
We're going to figure it out eventually. Yeah.
Okay, the next ordinance before you tonight is ordinance 18-2017. This is a rezoning, a final plat, and a final PD site plan for a proposed pilot travel center. I have an aerial view of the proposed site. So the site in question is, that is I-25 on the right side of the screen. And so at that southwest corner of I-25, and that is Baptist Road through the middle, that is the area in question, the subject site, I should say. And then there's an existing diamond shamrock on the north side of Baptist Road, which you're probably familiar with, to give you some perspective of the area we're speaking about tonight. So a summary of the project. Again, this is a pilot travel center. The site is approximately 11 acres. Similar to some of the other projects you've heard tonight, they are proposing to rezone to PD per that same section of the code, which requires it for these prior zoning districts as the code calls them. This area was previously called PID, is not platted. Obviously, there's no CO issued, so therefore they're required, again, to go through this rezoning. There is a plat, and they are simply creating one lot with right-of-way. Easiest plat. And obviously the final PD site plan for the travel center. Essentially, it's a convenience store with a gas station. It includes a restaurant with a drive-through. There's also auto and truck parking, a truck scale, landscaping signage, and related facilities. So obviously there's a lot going on this particular site in this site plan. So I'll start with the first issue, the rezoning. Again, I feel like we've gone over this several times already tonight. It's currently zoned PID. That particular section of the code requires it for undeveloped property. And that's why they are proposing PD tonight. The plat, again, this is a very simple plat. It simply creates one lot with right-of-way. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, that angled side is essentially adjacent to the southbound on-ramp to I-25, Baptist Road to the north of the site. And then there's an extension. New road would be, I believe it's called Terrazzo Drive. That's where all the access to this site would be. And that does line up, I'm gonna go back a slide or two. That does line up with that existing road or entryway to the facility on the north side. So where that existing curb cut is shown, that is where that new road would go. That's somewhat relevant because when this entire intersection or interchange was redone by CDOT and the county not very long ago, this was all done in preparation for this type of development. So there's already area there for a turn lane. They simply have to take out the striping there. So that will connect and line up. Just 2 seconds. Okay. The site plan, again, I know these are hard to see on the screens. Baptist Road on the north, the southbound on-ramp there on the right side. The actual building facility itself is shown in blue. It's about a little over 13,000 square feet or so. So the north portion of the site, the closest to Baptist Road, that area is for typical automobiles, regular cars, that has its own entrance essentially. That's where the drive-through to the restaurant would be. That would be regular, everyday fueling for a regular vehicle. The southern portion of the site, written in purple there with that purple area, that is the truck-specific area. So, in other words, cars and trucks are not going to be trying to go in and out of the same entrance. They're not going to be in the same parking areas. It's very specifically divided the way the site is laid out. They have their own, like I said, entrance. There's a ride-out even, and then there are fuel pumps, parking, and then in the southwest corner, southeast corner of the site is the detention pond. So just to highlight a little bit of the site plan, like I said, I know it's going to be hard to see all of the details on here. Can I skip some details on this one? How would I do that? Okay. My apologies. So now that we're talking about the PD site plan, a couple of items that are of particular note would be the architecture. There's not really anything developed down in this area, like I said, other than that existing diamond shamrock, which was built back in the 60s in the county. So they're not trying to match a particular architecture or a style, right? We've seen that in the past with some other areas where there's a particular style. That's not the case here. So this is really more sort of setting the stage, setting the bar for the next development that comes in. The proposal includes stucco, stone. They do have materials board here for you to see. They have this tile. It looks like wood, but it's tile. So some pretty quality architecture. There are materials on all 4 sides. And again, they're not really trying to match anything, so they're sort of setting the stage here with a variety of materials. All neutral colors. They have some red accents for their branding. I have several renderings from the applicant, and I believe they will show you some even some additional ones and maybe some even updated ones. But just to get a rough idea, again, this is sort of the, I'm going to call it front side, the north side, where the regular automobiles would typically be. You can see the variety of materials used, and then they do have quite a bit of landscaping, which I will go over those details as well. Again, the PD zone allows some flexibility. It allows it allows site-specific evaluation, so we can determine site per site what's needed, where is it needed to achieve the best outcome. So the applicant has proposed to do some pretty extensive screening on the truck area, on the I-25 side, so that when you're on that southbound ramp, there's an extensive amount of evergreen trees. You're not just going to see all these trucks parked. There's also some lower landscaping along the Baptist roadside. They've included, again, a number of trees, shrubs, bushes, all of those different types of materials to create quite a nice look. And there's a couple more renderings. Again, to sort of give you a feel, you're on that southbound ramp. There's mostly large evergreen trees that are screening between the vehicles, sort of screening their view there when they're looking to the west.
Excuse me, in that rendering, is the 60-foot high sign shown?
Not in this one, but it is in another one.
Okay.
I don't believe.
I'll wait for that.
Perfect segue. Thank you so much. Similar to landscaping, the signage has some flexibility in this zone for site-specific issues. There's a number of them that staff worked with the applicant that seemed relevant. Topography being one of the biggest ones. This site, if you've driven by there, it's sort of in a hole, basically, between the overpass or the bridge, if you will, the on and off ramps, and it simply sits lower. Obviously, that creates some visibility issues. Like I said, just based on purely where it's located. It's adjacent to I-25. It's most likely going to have an I-25 related type of use, and so that's certainly another factor to consider. The uses, I include that because there are multiple uses on this site, right? For another project, if we had a smaller site, it may only be one of them. It's not only a drive-through restaurant, not only a convenience store, right? Not only some truck facilities. So it has a variety of uses that they're utilizing on one site. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, is compatibility. It's not adjacent to residential. This is a different scenario than we've talked about in the past. This is the first development pretty much in this area. You know, that new road, there will certainly be future development, and it will likely all be very similar, this type of highway-oriented commercial industrial type use. So that's why it seems like compatibility is something relevant to consider in terms of the signage. There was a condition of approval discussed at the Planning Commission. The applicant, obviously in addition to the large sign that you're referring to, they had illustrated a couple, they called it wall art, 3 different areas of wall art on their building. I believe some of these early renderings had pizza, and they weren't signage per se, but they had photos of things that were relevant to their business. The Planning Commission worked with the applicant in discussions, and they essentially negotiated to change 2 of those wall arts to monument-specific murals. And I believe, due to the timing of the packet, I don't have those, but I believe the applicant will even have some renderings of those and discuss that with you further. So that was added as a condition by the Planning Commission, and the applicant agreed to that. Here is another rendering provided by the applicant. This one does illustrate all 3 items. It illustrates the architecture, the landscaping, as well as the sign. So the sign is included in this rendering at its proposed height. You can see it. I don't think it's overly outrageous. Again, due to the topography, the nature of this site, it's, again, I don't have a way to point, but it is essentially just to the left of the red pilot awning. Yeah. So it is included in this illustration. Okay, I have a couple more notes for you. I did want to let you know just a few things. I did not put on my slide for some reason. Similar to the other projects, this was heard by the Planning Commission on August 9th. At that hearing, there actually was no public comment at that hearing. There was no comments made by the public, and that vote was 6-0. I can confirm that for you, Mr. Goodman. Thank you. However, I also did want to report to you that in the last 2 days, staff has received a number of emails of comments regarding this project. So I'm not sure details on that delay. But we have received many of those over the last, yesterday and today. A lot of them are duplicate comments. Again, the same thing. Quite honestly, a number of those are not pertinent to the town's development regulations. There were some pertinent comments included. Those ask about increased traffic, the signage in particular. So again, there were other comments, but I'm not sure that they're relevant to our codes as pertains to this project. So I just want to point that out to the board, just so that you are aware. And then, just to get back, the Planning Commission did recommend approval with conditions. Again, that condition being changing, like 2 of the wall art to local type murals. Certainly they didn't get into exactly what those would look like, but local theme was certainly the way I understood that to be. And again, the applicant agreed to that, and we're happy to work with them to, get that to a, whether that's connecting them with local artists or whatever. I don't know those details. So that's where we are at the Planning Commission. They did recommend approval with conditions for the rezoning, the final plat, and the final PD site plan. They said it meets the approval criteria and the standards in place. Staff is available to answer any questions you may have, and I will also let the board know that the applicant is here with a brief presentation of their own on this project.
Questions from the board for Ms. Jones?
I just had a very simple question. On the wall murals, they're changing 2. How many are there in total, please?
There were 3 total, and then the Planning Commission worked with them to change 2 of them.
Okay, so it'll be related to monument.
Yes, that was my understanding. Mm-hmm.
But there won't be like a big talking pizza right in between our monument murals now. I mean, there's some guidelines, I would assume.
There are 3 wall art areas identified on the elevations. Again, those were just recently modified, as in the last day or 2. I believe the applicant has those in his presentation. Okay. But yeah, so 2 of those areas, again, the Planning Commission recommends those to be changed to the local murals, and then leaving 1 of their wall art. I don't know which item they're going to leave for their wall art. Maybe they can answer that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Jennifer at this time?
Who will maintain the landscaping on the property as time goes on?
The property owner. Absolutely. Which is,
make sure that
which would be the applicant pilot.
Okay. Just want to make sure that it's kept up and doesn't look old and run down like other places.
Of course. And they would be subject to all of our typical standards and those types of things. And again, there would be a bond in place for installation. There's even a bond in place for perhaps 2 years for them to be established and they don't die and that type of thing. So certainly.
One question for Ms. Jones, and then I know it's not part of the process, but I'd like to hear from the developer and give the opportunity to have some dialogue with that prior to the public comment. But specific question for you, this particular proposal, what kind of impact might it have, being the planning expert or in that department, what kind of impact on future planned businesses in that area? I know that that is a prime location and zone for future business parks and commerce centers and things like that. What type of impact would something like this have on the community's ability to attract other partners that may fit that area?
Well, my understanding from speaking with both the applicant and feedback we received from the current landowner is that they're both certainly under the assumption that this will spur additional development, both improvements to existing sites, and again, once they sort of gets that ball rolling, right, beginning that road, obviously that's a big starting point. It'll certainly continue with additional developments, but that's certainly, you know, from staff's perspective, the understanding is this type of development spurs additional development. Just other impacts you mentioned, again, it sort of sets the bar in terms of architecture and those types of things. Each potential development or each site would be reviewed on its own But in other words, the next site that's gonna come in is not gonna be, you know, a metal building with an unpaved lot or something like that. Again, it sort of sets that standard to only be raised as each development progresses.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Would the board like to hear from the applicant now, or do you have?
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Did you see this letter that was addressed to you from NEPCO?
Yes, sir. Of course.
Okay. The issues that they raised, the water use and things like that, was all that evaluated as part of your review process prior to your approval that you, the planning commission gave?
Absolutely, and I won't pretend to have memorized the NEPCO letter, but
I wanted to know, number one, you recognize it,
absolutely.
number two.
Absolutely. NEPCO is one of the agencies that staff does send all of our projects to for referrals.
Mm-hmm.
They're not an approving agency per se, right, like water or the fire district does, but they often do have very good input. And so we certainly did receive that. The applicant has also received that letter and is aware of their concerns and comments. Ultimately, my reading of that was that they weren't opposed to the project.
No.
They were in support of a larger sign, which I think,
Yeah,
I think the applicant
90
was
feet,
excited to read.
Well, actually, they said 70s. Okay.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
I think 60s.
The applicant's-
I'd rather have it be 20.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no, that's great. I'm glad to
certainly.
hear that you
Yes,
you
and-
looked at this, you understood what was being discussed.
Absolutely. And the applicant does have a will serve letter. They're in the Forest Lakes Metro District for water.
Okay.
So that those details have been worked out.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
Would the applicant like to come forward and address any questions that the board may have?
Excuse me, sir. Thanks.
Good evening, board. My name is Ross Shaver, project manager with Pilot Travel Centers. Appreciate you guys having me tonight. So before I get into my presentation, what I'd like to do is address some of the questions that you guys already had. So regards to landscaping, I think Jennifer already did a pretty good job of explaining we are responsible for maintaining that. The city does have a bond if there is an issue. And Pilot's actually a turnkey operation, so we're a general contractor as well. We have a corporate architect. I'm actually a professional engineer, but play a project management role. So we do sub out all of our work locally and nationally. So when we hire a local landscaper, he's required to maintain that for a year. So if he establishes a tree and it dies within that year, then per his contract, he has to replant that tree. So there's multiple avenues there that provides not only Pilot protection, but the town as well. So from a future business standpoint, the same property owner and developer that's currently developing the Falcon residential property to the west actually owns this property as well and is developing this. So this property is an overall 200+ acre development, which we're just developing 11 acres of that. So as you can imagine, this developer and property owner has done a significant amount of due diligence on us to make sure we're the kind of operator and kind of company that's going to maintain our facility, because if not, us being the cornerstone of his development, kicking it off, it only provides detriment to him. And in response to some of the letters received, they also sent a letter in explaining just that, of the due diligence that they did, how they suspect it will increase values, not only commercially but residentially, because of all the infrastructure and amenities that we'll be constructing. So I believe I addressed, and we did receive the letter, even though, and we'll talk about the sign in detail, but even though they recommended 70 feet, based on the flagging study that we did, we believe we only need 60, and that's why we kept it at 60.
Outstanding. Yeah.
So what we did, and again, I'll get into it in detail, we just matched the shamrock height of the sign because we feel like that's what's fair, and works through all the hardships and issues that the topography and the sign, so on and so forth, create. So with that being said, a little bit about Pilot. We're started in 1958 by Jim Haslam. It's still a family-owned and operated company. We're primarily a convenience store until the early 80s when Pilot saw the opportunity to get into the travel center truck stop business. So essentially, we were the first company and really pioneered the network of travel centers. We're also the first company that started doing contracts with trucking companies on fuel. So that means pretty much about 60 to 70% of our diesel business that we will pull off I-25 can only stop at Pilot Flying J. So those are tax dollars that you can only get with Pilot Flying J being in this town because they have to stop at our facility to fuel. We continue to grow and have partnerships with pretty much all the major players, Marathon, Shell. We essentially have bought them out. Like I said, the Haslam family still owns the company. Continue to grow the company with the biggest growth in 2010 when we bought our biggest competitor out of bankruptcy, which is Flying J. So Pilot Travel Center is actually 2 brands, but 1 company. Another thing that we've gotten into here in the 2000s is we pretty much are the largest logistical company for the hauling of sand, oil, and water for the fracking fields. So essentially when it comes to oil in the oil industry, the only thing Pilot Flying J doesn't lead is the refinery of oil. So we are the largest retailer of diesel in North America. We're the 6th largest privately held company in the United States, and we're a top 10 restaurant franchisee owner in the United States as well. So here is just a map of the locations across our country. As you can see, there's a lot of dots on the map. We're in 46 states, 3 provinces of Canada. This will be, we actually have a project under construction in Lamar right now. So this will be the 6th. I said the 5th because due to a DOT project in Denver, our store 316 is actually going to have to be shut down. The DOT will be taking over that facility. So that's another reason this facility here is so important for us, because the DOT is now eliminating one of our main I-25 sites.
And what would be the reason that they were doing that?
In order to do an interstate project through there,
Okay.
they take so much of our
Construction
development,
part.
they're essentially, it's almost kind of a condemnation where they're purchasing that facility
I
from
got you.
us.
Okay.
So part of our network, as you can imagine, we have a lot of conversations with our clientele and our customers, and that have voiced to us for some time, we have a hole in our network where we're not serving them well, and it's in this corridor. And we have actually spent 2 years trying to find the right site for our location here. You've probably heard we had a site in Pueblo that we were kind of working on initially. The DOT did that split diamond interchange, which killed that project because that no longer works. And this property was not available at that time, or we would have jumped on this because this is an incredible site for Pilot Flying J. So I think a couple things of note is the current zoning, 2 out of the 4 quadrants are PCDH, which actually lists a travel center truck stop as a use by right. We are in, I'm not sure if you can see the pointer there, but we're in this quadrant right here, as Jennifer showed. So we're really already surrounded by similar uses. Another thing is the comp plan that was just approved, as you guys are fully aware, actually lists our use as a specific type of use here. And then also in 1989, there was an annexation ordinance that the town actually approved with our use as a use by right. So to me, what that speaks is there's been almost 30 years that the town has recognized our kind of use at this location, from the late 80s to 2017, and it has just worked out perfectly for us to find this property, you know, and be at this location. As Jennifer explained, we are before you because the the zoning code changed, which requires us to come before you since we were not vested with a certificate of occupancy or a plat. Uh-oh. Okay, so when we go to a community, we want to establish ourselves in the community, become a part of the community. And one of the first things we realized was, of course, the view. So as Jennifer explained, we have gone above and beyond to provide an immense amount of landscaping. Jennifer showed you some renderings. But what we wanted to do is, because we know most of the view is coming from east to west, we wanted to provide you with renderings that showed just that. So what we did is we went out here and we took our pictures, and our rendering guy takes our actual CAD file and puts it in real topography to show you what our facility, how it would really be viewed from a person standing at this location. So this intersection is actually Struthers Ranch Road and Struthers Road, and what you can see is that red circle, and you can see in red that would be our facility. So this location, it's actually hidden by the topography because we sit down in that low spot. So here is another one, pretty much in the subdivision at the first house, and you can see it's not visible again because of the topography. Now, if you move down Struthers, there's probably a handful of places, you know, it kind of goes up and down. There are going to be places where you can get a glimpse of it. But again, if you see, that's actually our landscape and our facility turned on instead of being lit up in red. You can't see it because it's gonna block all the landscaping that we have in there. You're not going to be able to see our facility. Plus, because of the topography with the overpass and the on-ramps, you're not going to be able to see the facility from Struthers. So here is, this is at Jackson Creek and Lions Trail. And again, because of the topography, you can't see it. So what I'm trying to portray, and I know some of these are actually outside of the town, they're in the county, but along the main corridors, you're not going to be able to see this location due to the topography. And guys, feel free to ask questions at any time. So here is a rendering. I don't think Jennifer showed this one, but this is actually pretty much the intersection of the southbound ramp and Baptist. So you can see all the landscaping, how we sit down in that low spot. You're going to look right over our facility, and we're going to be hidden. Now, you asked about the sign in the picture. It's actually just to the south. Because of the angle of the property and the Shamrock sign, we couldn't put it right in the corner, or it would have been blocked. So what we had to do is kind of push it in the back third of our site, and it does show up here.
How many years does it take to get the pine trees facing 25 to that size?
A lot.
So we plant them to a mature point,
Yep.
and they do take some time to grow, but our intent is for it to be blocked.
20 years, 15 years, something, just an estimate.
Well, you know, ultimately,
Not my department.
a lot of the native trees are going to go slower. You know, we're going to irrigate that, and we also put xeriscape, so more native type landscaping, so they'll take and try to grow and have longer growth periods in the area since they're local. So here is another rendering on Terrazzo looking, so this would be pretty much our southern access looking into the site. So this would be the back side of the facility, looking at the truck canopy, looking right up to the access. So we have landscaping on the right, and we have landscaping in the islands. So essentially, besides these little blimps of views by the accesses, you're going to have landscape surrounding it. And we do have pretty much architecture on all three sides. Excuse me, all four sides. Here's another one just north of that, a couple hundred feet at this next access. And again, you can see some of the landscaping in the islands. It's broken up because of the access for the vehicles. So this is a facility that I built in Beasley, Texas a couple years ago, which is actually southwest Houston. And this shows you an exact picture of essentially what we're going to construct versus the renderings. So you can see it's pretty much identical. The Arby's is on the opposite side, but you have your stucco on the very left. You have a sea of cultured stone. You have the wall tile. You have our signage cabinets, the art that we talked about, which we are going to put up murals of Monument and work with staff on that. And then you have the Arby's. Here's another picture of just the truck driver entrance on the rear. You can see it's the same kind of amenities. You have a solid steel trash can. It's not going to blow over. You have flowers. It's just a whole part of another level of the guest experience. Because at the end of the day, anybody can sell fuel. It's how we separate ourselves from our competitors. Those small touches that go a long way, and that try to go above and beyond. So I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly. But here's pictures of the interior of our facility. As you can see, it's tile, tile, tile. It's 100% LED lights. You have monocell and maple finishes. Here's our beverage cooler, tile, tile. Again, high lit lighting in the inside. Here's our drink bar, monocell maple finishes, tile, cappuccinos, coffees, teas, soda fountains. It's all digital advertisement. Here's what the Wendy's would look like. We do want to actually do a Wendy's here versus an Arby's. but we're currently working through that. So if we can't get the Wendy's worked out, then we will do an Arby's. Here's our restrooms. The tiles imported from Italy. You can see all the accent bands. It's a non-microbial tile, so bacteria can't grow on it. Here's the showers. So our sign plan. This shows every sign that we have in our facility, whether it be canopy signage, directional signs, handicap signs, building signage. I think the main sign of discussion is right here, and it's hard to see, but just so everyone is aware of where it is. So I talked about earlier, it's in the back third, so it's right here. So here is the sign, the monument sign. The ground sign is on the right. It's 11 feet tall, 18 feet wide. Has our Pilot, the Arby's, or the Wendy's. We also plan on doing a Dunkin' Donuts here as well, along with our PJ Fresh restaurant concept. And then you've got the 60-foot sign as well, which I can get into detail on that. So you have pretty much architecture of 12 feet of stone on the columns. And then you have some radius steel here towards the bottom. That's fully open below the pricers. Then you have the Arby's or the Wendy's. You have our Pilot sign, and then you have another radius steel for some architecture. It'll all be black or a dark bronze, essentially. So on the sign, so what we did is we went out and we hired a company and they performed a flagging study. So our criteria is, hey, start a mile out from the ramp, go 3/4 of a mile, half a mile, 1/4 mile at the ramp, and you do that northbound and southbound. And then they take a crane out there, okay, and they go in intervals starting like 40 feet all the way up to 100 and some feet. And here they went 20 feet. So they take like 40, 60, 80, 50, 70, all those intervals at each location, a mile, 3/4, so on and so forth. So what we did, as you can see, and I've got better pictures here on the next slide, is this is at 70 feet right here, a 1/4 mile out. This is at 50 feet, a 1/4 mile out. So at 60 feet, you take the average, you're pretty much at the height of the Shamrock sign. So in order to remove the hardship and overcome the topography, the overpass, so on and so forth, we determined that we need a 60-foot sign. We talked about NEPCO already approving it. We've worked with the staff to incorporate architecture into the sign, so it's just not a freestanding pole sign. One of the things I want to mention from a visibility standpoint, this sign will be perpendicular to the interstate. So from that view, that east to west view, you're looking at the sign in its short width. So you're looking parallel to the sign face, if that makes sense. It's not directly illuminated. It's all internally illuminated. It's all LEDs. So all of our site has cutoff fixtures, so there's no upthrow on the lighting. So there's no light pollution from that standpoint. So essentially, the driving customer on I-25 is going to see it, and it's not going to block the visibility. So a little about our tax revenue. So we do an economic impact study, and the projected annual tax revenue is $2.7 million. For monuments, $155,000. This does not include construction tax dollars. It doesn't include the employees putting tax dollars back in, or other customers going within the town and getting tax dollars. This is also based on our business plan, which is pretty conservative. So I can't make guarantees, I can't make promises, but typically what we see is this is typically a minimum of what the town could expect. And
what was the final number for monument?
I've got some, I'm sorry, sir, I can't address questions right now during this time. I've got some letters from some other towns that we've built in, representing that they have actually gotten more tax dollars than what they expected, and how we have treated the community, and how we haven't had any issues within the community, and I can pass those out in a second. But we also do project to create 80 new jobs with 2 to 3 of those of pilot only bringing. That's typically our top managers. Everyone else who will try to hire locally, it's usually 50% full-time, 50% part-time with benefits. And that's over $1 million of total annual combined salaries. We try to get involved in the community. Pilot's huge into philanthropy in multiple areas. If you came to Knoxville, I mean, it's all Pilot Flying J. Every school in Knox County just got a brand new football field this year from Pilot Flying J. So we believe in being involved in the communities. It's how we make money. We try to ask that our general manager be involved in the community. That way there's a face and not just a corporate number. So with that being said, what questions can I answer?
Questions from the board?
I just had one
Yes,
question.
sir.
And understanding that the trucks will shower and spend the night because there's regulations and drive. There will not be personal camping there? Or?
No, like RV type camping?
Yes,
No,
sir.
sir. No, it's just for truck. I mean, RVs can go back there, but we don't allow them to stay for a long period of time.
Okay.
So, yes, sir.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Handful of questions. Thank you for your
Yes, sir.
presentation, by the way, very thorough. Parking, so looking at at least the big rig parking
Mhm.
facing 25, how many trucks and maximum capacity?
So there's a
can you
total of 72.
72
Yes, sir.
spots there?
Mm-hmm. Not along I-25, but in total.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long can someone stay there?
Typically, they're just overnight at most. I mean, you know, all these guys operate a little differently. Now, you know, if you get major weather, then of course you're going to have, you know, where guys are going to stay there the entire time until the weather moves on. But at the end of the day, a lot of these guys sometimes drive at night, sometimes they don't. It just differs, you know, for what their preference is.
Sure. Traffic-wise,
Mhm.
you got to bring up traffic. Looking at that location already is bad. It's just traffic-wise. I'm just trying to imagine all these trucks and people coming off the interstate trying to get to that side of it versus, you know, they got to turn somewhere. Is there going to be a light there?
So I would, you know, I'm not sure how the perception of that is being bad because currently that system from a traffic engineering standpoint operates at a level of service of 8. So I'm not, and please don't take this wrong.
I drive it every day, and it's just personal, not pleasant to do. So
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I said I drive it every day.
Okay.
To and from work. And it's just
So, you know, ultimately, as Jennifer explained, CDOT and the county put a significant amount of dollars in infrastructure planning for developments such as ours at that location. You know, that's why there's already a dual left turn lane there with just the stripe hatch. So literally all we have to do is remove that hatching, come in, put the arrows, put the white line to separate the two, and it's really ready. So from a traffic standpoint, and the counties reviewed this, the cities reviewed it, we've addressed the comments and expect to really have a permit in hand at any time. But from that standpoint, what a traffic engineer is required to do is evaluate it for its current condition, and then evaluate it for our development, and then evaluate it for a horizon period, which actually went to 2040. And what they do is they agree to a certain percentage of growth in the community utilizing that corridor. So they use 1.5% is what was agreed to. So our development, so currently no issues. With our development, no issues. When you get to the background traffic of 2040, there's actually no issues with Baptist or with the ramps or anything along that nature. The issue is with Wood Carver, the roundabout. And the county admitted that even when they redid that initially, it was on the cusp of even, you know, whether it was going to work or not for any background traffic. So we have spoken with them. They admitted that, hey, when that growth occurs, they're going to have to add additional lane. Now, when the next development comes in, and when that background traffic continues to grow, there will have to be a signal put in, but it's not warranted for our project.
okay. Similar facilities, similar area as far as size-wise, population served, access to a corridor such as I-25. How many customers, unique vehicles per day, and I'd say on both ends from a private consumer type of,
Yeah, so
versus commercial?
about 80% of our business is drivers just like you and I.
Right.
So really our truck aspect is the smaller percentage. You're probably looking around 300 trucks a day, probably a total of about 1,500 vehicles a day on average. So we'll serve about 1 million customers a year.
And then lastly, similar projects, I'd say starting in an area that has yet to be developed, such as this one being proposed, what type of businesses are typically built in the future that you've seen, when you've kind of led the way for a new development
Sure.
of commercial?
So you have other restaurants because of the the generation of customers there. You have other retail. You have hotels. You have office space. Because again, a lot of times when I'm going in, I'm building all this infrastructure that these size of developments need. Now, I believe this is, again, to go back to the comp plan, set up for mixed use for really everything I've mentioned, maybe except without hotels, but also really a push on office and warehousing and I think some light industrial kind of uses. But I know all those items would have to come before you all as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Let me just go to the line.
Go ahead.
Sorry. For the tax dollars, you were saying $155K for the town of Monument. That's annually?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, we have that older, smaller truck stop across the freeway, not freeway, but Baptist Road.
Yes, ma'am.
That appears to not offer what you're going to be building. And so I would imagine that the business there is going to be negatively impacted. What is your experience in building a pilot Flying J Center elsewhere where there's already a truck stop type of facility there, right there next to it?
Sure. Very, very common. I think one of the things of note of that is they're owned by a pretty large corporation, Circle K. So, I'm not sure exactly when that was purchased. I don't know that off the top of my head. But what I've seen happen is when you have a larger corporation such as ourselves, and you have a competitor come in, you spend facility capital dollars to upgrade your facility in order to help compete with the customer. So my expectation would be that they're going to put some more dollars in there to improve their facility and make it as nice as they possibly can to compete with a facility such as ours. That's what I've typically seen.
So your experience isn't that they've shut down?
No, ma'am, not when they've spent millions of dollars to purchase that facility.
Okay.
Because that's a lot of debt they're about to take on for a purchase of that nature.
Okay.
Now, if it's a mom and pop kind of operation, that may look a little different, but with a company of that magnitude, we would never do that. And the competitors that we compete with every day in this specific industry, they wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With your facilities, have you experienced or seen any indication of crime increase, drugs, anything of that nature as associated?
I mean, we serve 1 million customers a year, so I'd be lying to you if I told you there's going to be zero crime.
Mm-hmm.
What I can tell you is there's an unfortunate generalization to the truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen? Sure, but it happens in any industry, professional industry, politics, it doesn't matter, right? You're dealing with humans. We do everything that we can to prevent that. We have security cameras. Our general managers walk the site multiple times. Again, 80% of my business is individuals such as you and I. So if your wife doesn't want to go, your daughter doesn't want to go, if I have all this infrastructure, I mean, this is a $12+ million project. I can't allow that to happen, or I'm going to go out of business. And Pilot has not built the corporation that it has and sustained that corporation by allowing that kind of stuff to occur. We work with police if anything does happen. Again, I've got letters here from multiple years from other communities, mayors, police chiefs that represent we do what we say and we try to do everything we can. And the other thing I would say is where we have issues is where we go into pretty rough communities. Because it's not like they're bringing these items with them. It kind of takes two to make a transaction no matter what it is. So that has to be here already. And I don't see the town of Monument being that kind of location. So you know, I'm going out pretty strongly saying I just don't see that being an issue here. But we will do what it takes to prevent that from happening, because we're not going to go out of business.
Thank you.
And I've got these letters here if you guys would like to see them. I can pass these out.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing
multiple letters.
that this is a public hearing, would any member of the public like to speak against this item? Sir. Please state your name and fill out the sheet with your address.
Good evening, I'm Phil Schweitzer. Oops. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time. Impressive company, Pilot, very impressive. No problem.
Just so we can hear. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry about this. I probably should have done this earlier. Try to speed this up. Sorry. Thank you. I'm keeping them coming, just so you understand. Let's see, we got three more to get out of the way. Thank you. And we're done, I promise. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Phil Schweitzer again. I ask that you set this proposal aside. 150 grand is not a lot of money. Pilot's a great operator. I wish I was proposing it. They'll kill it over the next 100 years there. It's a 100-year site, a 100-year business. They'll be there a long time. I ask you to think the quality of life issues. What quality of life issues does this bring to the table for the town of Monument for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 75, 100 years down the road? I moved here with my family in 2001. My kids now, all of them are out of college. They've traveled the world. My oldest son just came back from a year and a half living in China, speaks fluent Chinese, spent 3 years in the Army. I can't convince him to come live in this community. And he says, why? Why, my other two kids, why should they move to this community? The answer is quality of life. Parks, access to the mountains, things like the Santa Fe Trail, beautiful trail, incredible asset to our community. Do I tell my kids, well, we've got a Flying J here, that's going to get them excited to move to our community. This layout, this design they have is a joke as far as pedestrian bicycle traffic. 150 grand a year, how many fatalities a year from pedestrians and bicycle traffic? Without this facility today, when you go eastbound on Baptist Road, across there, there's no sidewalks. It's a death-defying act today. This facility, again, very successful company. God bless them. I wish them the best. If there was going to be a truck stop there, let these guys do it, because they do a first-rate job. You know, they got trash cans that don't blow away, LED lighting. Well, who cares? What matters is, are we going to have fatalities out on that road from bicycles, pedestrians? Right now, with their design, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, what are our kids going to say? Well, that's a joke, man. How many fatalities a year do you have from people getting run over by semis and trucks? I ask you to think about the big picture of our quality of life here. What are they doing as far as pedestrian and bicycle traffic? The second part of my discussion, I asked you to pose this, is I refer back to the Town of Monument Parks Trail Open Space Master Plan of 2003. I don't know if anybody can pull that up. Need the electronics to do it, and I'm not good. In that master plan since 2003, this community has laid out the master plan for trails, open space, for our community. In that plan on page 13, they call out a proposed Jackson Creek Trail. They call it a off-road, not a dirt trail, but one just not on the side of the road, similar to Santa Fe Trail, running from 105 south to Baptist Road. essentially a parallel to the Santa Fe Trail, but on the east side of the interstate. That from 2003, that's what this community has said, that's the direction they want to go, along with several other proposed routes. That was a proposed route in 2003. Of course, it's been ignored, and none of it exists today. I ask you to stop ignoring that route. This route that we said we would start in 2003 hasn't happened. As of today, the only viable, even remotely viable option would be having it about the first 30 to 50 feet on the east side of the interstate, running along there where there's very little development. That ends up, the south end of that puts that right at the old Burkhart's, yeah. So you're going to have we have a community that have said since 2003 we want another trail there, which would probably end up with a trailhead at the old Burkhart's, right where we're going to have this incredible amount of traffic from trucks, 1,500 trucks, vehicles a day. I personally believe in 15 years from now it'll be triple that. This is not a Synthes where we're, if it was Synthes, I'd say, well, for Synthes moving in and bringing in some high-paying jobs, they'd say, well, we can put up with a fatality a year. But it's not. For that, I ask you guys to vote against it, set it aside. They need to really, really beef up their pedestrian, bicycle issues on the, well, actually going east and west. Because even when you're westbound, and what he's saying is the Diamond Shamrock in 15 years from now is going to have a lot more traffic. Because he just said that their competitors usually come in because the locations are so valuable that they beef up and redevelop that property, which probably will happen. So that's going to be a massive, it's death-defying today to ride your bike across that bridge. Is that what we're going to tell our grandkids to come and move to Monument for? Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your time.
Would anybody else like to speak against this ordinance?
Do you have one? I gotta get up in like 4 hours to go to work. My name is Bart. I live on Bandit Creek. I talked with Chris today at length about it, and he was very nice to talk for over an hour. You all have an email from me listing my issues with what's going on. A lot of it is what Phil said, and so I'm not going to go back and repeat it. What I would say is I'm asking the same thing Phil is. Let's push this off. Let's have a town hall meeting about this so that everyone can be involved, because I was the one that initially posted all this on Facebook. So it went out to about 6,000 members, and within 20 minutes I realized that the public didn't know what was going on. I'm not saying you guys didn't do your job, that you didn't follow the letter of the law. What it was, it's just that it's a failure on both sides. Maybe the town didn't communicate it well enough, maybe the citizens were not involved enough. I actually thought it was a Target, and I was riding my bike by it, and I saw the white sign on there, and I was riding with a guy, and I said, hey, they're putting a Target there. And the guy said, no, that's going to be a truck stop. And so I didn't believe it. And I said, a truck stop's the absolute last thing Monument needs. And sure enough, it was a truck stop. So anyway, my thought is let's communicate this really, really well to the public. I know they could have come today, but it was short notice. I only found out about this because of Jennifer last week. I'm terribly sorry that I put your email address on the internet. It's just all I had. So there were people that were for it. There were people that didn't care. And there were a lot of people like me who have lived here for 30 years who were very, very against it. The last 2 weekends, I've seen more families trying to cross Baptist Road with little kids trying to get to Santa Fe Trail to ride into Monument or ride to the Rock to get ice cream in Palmer Lake. So it is an issue. I've never seen that many families, trying to get over the interstate there. It's a dangerous road. It really is, and I think that Pilot is going to increase danger. And if you look at the survey that I'm not sure who that company was. I can't remember who they were. You referenced it a few minutes ago about the sign height. When all of that's built out, they expect 1,000 vehicles an hour using the on and off ramps that's in there.
That's absurd. By 2019, it's like 270 vehicles an hour. That's only 2 years away when pilot's done. That's kind of my thing. Let's table this. Let's do a better job on all of our parts as citizens, and as the city, just as a community at large, to discuss this, so that everybody has a chance to say what they want to, and then he can answer your question of how long it takes for a tree to grow, and then he can make his statement in front of 600 people that he expects to have a building permit in hand in just a few days. Because as a citizen, I find that very disrespectful to you guys. You can still vote yes or no. It's not Pilot. I know they're a big corporation. They have a lot of money and a lot of lawyers, but it's our town. So that's my thing. I would just like for you guys to do that. With that, I'm going to trust you to do the right thing, and I'm going to go to bed. But anyway, thanks for your time, and thanks for letting me speak.
Could I get your last name?
Banks, B-A-N-K-S. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Chrisberg, and I'd like to address the board on my thoughts, and based on my experience in life and what I do for a living. It's a great company. I stop at them all the time. I understand why they want to locate here. It's a great community. But I'm going to address this on two specific areas. One is risk, and the second is enforcement. Okay, let's talk about risk. At the south end of I-25 is what many people call the most dangerous city in the world, or as Mexico. Okay, this is a trafficking corridor. We can't stop the stuff coming across the border. God knows everybody's been trying. The Sinaloa drug, it's not a drug cartel, it's a transnational criminal organization, a TCO. The Sinaloa TCO does drugs, precursors, knockoffs, and human trafficking. And God knows that that's all they do. And if you think Pilot is big, look at the numbers that Sinaloa pushes across the border every year. This is a trafficking corridor. There's many things out there at the unclass, at the law enforcement sensitive level and higher to substantiate that. They use this corridor to get not only the I-25 corridor, not only to get to I-10, to I-40, to I-70, and also up to I-94 before they split it off. Okay, risk. By having this here, you're going to have more opportunity for people who are trafficking things north and south to stop and get gas and everything else. No matter where you would put this, you increase the risk by doing that. So that's one of my concerns, is the risk that a truck stop of that size brings by what passes through Monument to keep on going. We don't want you to stop here. The traffic's up and down this road on a daily basis. The second thing I'd like to talk to is enforcement. I've been very concerned over the last couple of years with vagrant vehicles in the Walmart and the Home Depot complex. I've talked to the chief. Chief gave me some very sage advice well over a year ago that it's private property and they can't go on to do anything about those vagrant vehicles unless the owners of those properties, big companies, Walmart, I don't think Valero or Pilot is the size of Walmart. Not unless those managers call, okay? Not unless those managers call. We had a truck sitting out, a 5,000 gallon used oil truck that sat on the back side of Kohl's because the manager of Kohl's said it was okay. 5,000 gallons sat out there for weeks and months and years, and he parked it there. Okay, I asked the Kohl's manager, well, you know, that's just a temporary thing. Well, I'm from Milwaukee. My dad used to work with Maxi Kohl. I knew who to call back in Menominee Falls. I don't see that truck there anymore. Okay, there's a camper that's out there. I've talked to the manager of Walmart, every one of them, depending on the shift. They do nothing. I talked to the manager of Home Depot. They do nothing. And he moves from Home Depot to Walmart to the dirt lot next to Freddy's, and nobody does anything. The only person who's done anything is when he parked in that Taekwondo parking lot, and I talked to the owner. He never came back there again. Wonder why. Now, unless they invite the city police to come on that property to enforce that, or I can get a hold of the property manager out of Denver, that RV is going to sit there and move from place to place to place. And God knows what he's doing there. God knows what he's scoping out or watching. That's an enforcement issue. It's not a problem for Monument Police at this point, but nobody's doing anything about it. And I've been working this for a year and a half, and he just moves from place to place to place. So who's going to enforce it? Do you really think that the manager of Pilot is going to call the city of Monument if he has a camper sitting there? And guess who's going to be the next? I'll give him the picture of the camper that's going to be the first guy sitting there for 2 days. Because I've got pictures. You know, and I've got pictures of generators running on the side. And I got pictures of cars, and they switch license plates from one car to the vehicle, and from one vehicle back to the car, depending on what they're driving. Nothing's being done because it's on private property. So I'm concerned about the enforcement side of that. Finally, I'd be interested to see what the board and the township does for repurposing the Conoco, which has lost a lot of business after the I-25 construction, and to repurpose the Valero lot, and to probably repurpose the Arby's lot over here once all those go out of business. And now you have that sitting in the middle of Monument proper. So thank you for your time. Oh, one other thing. What's the plan to stop traffic going up Baptist Road to Hodges and to Highway 24 in alignment? Because I'll tell you what, put your car in at the corner of I-25 and Baptist and plug in alignment and see what the GPS tells you to do. It doesn't say go down to Colorado Springs and get off at Cimarron. So that's going to be additional traffic up and down that hill. It might not be legal, but more of an enforcement issue. So thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Anybody else that would like to speak against this item, not any other items?
No, this
Yes.
specifically. Yeah. My name is Stacy Cruz, and I live in the Jackson Creek development that is off Jackson Creek and Lions Tail, not Lions Trail. My number one concern is the safety of my children and my family. My husband would be with me right now, but he's a firefighter and is on shift. So there are nights that it is just me and my children. My 2 kids are 2 of 7 that are in our tiny little cul-de-sac. And that's one cul-de-sac out of many that are in Jackson Creek. That's a mile away from this pilot that you're trying to put off Baptist. That scares me to death because it's a mile away. Not only that, it's less than 5 miles from an elementary school that's within that development. That's putting all of those children. That's wonderful and great that you have security cameras at the pilot, but what does that do when they leave that area and move closer into our city and where we consider it safe? It is a high traffic zone on that 25 going from Mexico all the way to Canada. There's sex trafficking, drug cartel, everything. You name it. And it's not safe to give them another location a mile away from my home to do that sort of business. It's not safe for our kids. The bicycles, the trail that's right there that we consider a safe area will no longer be a safe area because we don't know who will be there, in and out of there every single day. And not only that, but the new beautiful development that's being built just to the west. Those new gorgeous homes that are being put up there, they're gonna have to drive by that every single day just to get to the highway or to get to the grocery store. And I don't know why more of those people aren't here today because I wouldn't do it. So I don't know, I would just beg of you, look at my children, see their faces, and know it is not safe to put something like that in our beautiful city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ma'am, your name?
My name is Michelle Bremer, and although I've heard several times tonight that there is no adjacent residential areas to this development, I live next to it, and I have for about 35 years. So that is my neighborhood, and I would have gone to the August 9th meeting, but I only saw the sign about a week before, or a week and a half before, and I already had made arrangements to be out of the state. So I didn't have an opportunity to say anything at that hearing. But I have a few concerns. One, I can tell you how long it takes to grow a tree in that neighborhood, because I've been living there for 35 years, and every year I buy about 200 trees from the Forest Service, and I plant them, and the next year I buy another 200, and I replace the 190 that died over the prior winter. It takes a tremendous amount to grow trees there, to grow any kind of shading or screening. The rock yard that's right there that went in a few years ago that we welcomed, we said they're going to be a good neighbor. We were happy to see them. Many of the trees that they put in for screening and for landscaping around that facility are dead. It's a 1-year warranty is meaningless on anything growing in this area. It takes 5 to 10 years to know whether it's going to make it. So a 1-year warranty may mean something in New England or Kansas City or somewhere else. In that neighborhood, it doesn't mean anything at all. I'm concerned about the sign. We keep hearing that it's a modest little sign, and on the picture that they showed, it showed a little tiny rectangle, kind of like the Diamond Shamrock sign. But then when we saw the detailed picture of the sign, it's 25 feet wide and 60 feet tall. That's bigger than my house standing on end. That's got huge visual impact. If they've got these purchase agreements in place with the trucking companies, they really shouldn't need to advertise that much with such a huge sign to get the business. It sounds like they've got a lot of it sewn up already. And I'm concerned that with a sign that big and a facility that's open 24/7, that my house is always going to be bathed in light. It will never be dark, and I will feel like I'm part of the truck stop. I know that that's not my property. I don't own it. I didn't buy it. I don't pay the taxes on it. But this, specifically that sign, is going to suddenly make my house feel very much like a part of the truck stop. It's going to really ruin the value of the property in terms of my being able to enjoy my property, even though there's no physical violation of the boundary. And to me, it's a bit disingenuous to show a picture of that little tiny sign, you know, as far as what you can see from where, comparing it to the Diamond Shamrock sign, and then to see the detail thing. Well, there's the piece up on top, and then there's another piece, and another piece, and another piece, and another piece. The sign itself is like its own structure. It's a huge structure. So currently, as far as I know, we're still zoned residential agricultural. And I understand that the world is changing and that we have to flex, we have to change with it. And people have to get their gas, and I understand that. There's already a fair amount of crime in that neighborhood. We end up calling the police on a regular basis. There are a lot of drug deals that go down there already. I don't know whether that will increase or not with the truck stop. The last time we had to call the police, it took 15 minutes when we had an intruder outside our house looking in our window. It took 15 minutes to have a policeman show up. I don't know how that will change with this or not, whether it will change or not. I'm not criticizing the police. They work hard. They do a great job when they show up, but I suspect they're wildly busy. I don't know what impact this will have. I guess I'd like to see more community conversation about this, because once the facility goes in, it won't come back out again. And I just don't like to see our community make a hasty decision In some ways, Monument has changed a lot in the 35 years that we've been here. Population was 650 when we moved in, and the phone book was like a tiny little pamphlet. And I understand everybody else wants to live in this beautiful place, but I'd really beg you not to make a permanent decision without getting more input from more people as we find out more about this. But I can tell you about the trees. It's a long time. It takes a very long time. Thank you. I'll sign in.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak against this ordinance? Sir?
My name is Anthony No, and my concerns are a little bit of all of those, but primarily it's, I think, traffic. I think traffic's the number one thing. If a truck were to miss the truck stop somehow, they're doing a donut down there that I don't know what that's going to look like. And I don't really know what 300 trucks a day looks like, but I know what one truck trying to get on going northbound looks like right there. And the trucks trying to get over, and it's pretty crowded. As far as they already have their business in a row because they've got all these agreements, I don't know how long that's going to last. Right now, their previous president is facing fraud charges and witness tampering. There's an entire group of them, not just the one guy, it's an entire group. That was their mode of operation since like 2009, was to basically rip people off of their rebates. So I don't know how much you want to trust that income or what your percentage of it is without some kind of auditing built into your deal. Secondly, I would think that the security in the landscaping should be part of a long-term bond as well. If they don't maintain security and you have to hire 2 new officers, that's that. It's just going to have to be done. And who's going to pay? They're not. Every one of their, according to them, every one of their truck stops has security. Some of them have off-duty police officers with arms. I mean, it's an issue. It's not a non-issue. There is security that comes along with this. Whether you're on a corridor or not, all of their truck stops, all those little dots, have security guards there for a reason. They would do away with them, just like any business does away with expenses they don't need. So those are the primary concerns. On a more practical basis, contacting people within 500 feet of something isn't really effective. I mean, 500 feet of that place is, you're in the middle of a lane or something. All those folks on the other side have no idea what they're about to battle. They're not here. Somebody wondered why they're not here. They're not here because they don't know. I stumbled across it on some post, not the Facebook guy's post, but another post said, "Did you know tonight?" And so I tried to call real quick and say, well, surely you did a study, right? Well, the planning guy's not here. So I don't know if you did or not, but somebody surely, maybe I'd have pushed it off on them if I were the city to do a traffic study. I mean, what's the traffic coming off there right now? What's the traffic coming on there right now? What's the anticipated traffic from already approved plans? And how do you intend to deal with your increase in that traffic? And even though their trucks and cars don't go into the same place in the parking lot, they're all coming off that one side road, it looks like. So I don't know if they have 2 roads or something. It looked like one road and then 2 different entrances. So you've got the same problem, cars and trucks mixed readily right there trying to get across Baptist. And again, what happens if the truck says, oh crap, I should have got over left. I mean, I have a hard time turning around when I go at Baptist to turn around to get to King Soopers. It's like, oh man, I gotta go all the way up here. There's not any practical way to take care of that, especially when you're talking about a volume of trucks. So that would be my concern, is that primarily traffic. There hasn't been a traffic study, or if there has, I mean, I didn't find out about it soon enough to see. But there ought to be a really serious traffic study there, and maybe instead of just a few letters from their best customers, maybe you would make them give you their worst ones too. What's the worst places we've got? So if you have some context when you're trying to look at this, rather than a sales pitch, which I understand that's his job, is a sales pitch. But Colorado's growing. We're one of the top 10 destinations in the nation for young professionals. That is moving south. Okay, everybody's growing. You know that. Colorado Springs, everybody's growing, and so it's a matter of what you want to grow into, because they're coming. So however you want to structure that, I think is going to have some bearing on what you end up with. You know, you've already got retail and professional going in over there on the other side of Baptist, dentist office, doctors, box stores, and it's all kind of based around residential folks. And then all of a sudden, bam, here's this, you know, million people a year thing right across the street that has nothing to do with you guys really, but 40 jobs. I mean, 40 full-time jobs. So I just think it, number one, people didn't get enough chance to let you know what they think. I think it affects other people other than really the city of Monument, like the folks in Glen Eagle. Wow, I mean, they're going to have it right there in their face. And so I don't know if maybe somebody should look at some type of larger, they've been surveying since March of last year, you know, so there's no reason it couldn't have gotten out there on a more, you know, staged basis instead of the last minute, let's just do this, get it done. And I don't know, that's about it. I think
Thank you.
all the points are in there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak against this? Yes, sir?
Hey, my name's Larry Webb. I've lived here since '93 when I retired from the military. I live up in Promontory Point. I lived in Paddington Circle, then moved over to Promontory Point. You know, you've got a shamrock that's been there 57 years. And, you know, it's been dedicated to the area. Now, we're talking about all the plants and everything and how this new pilot's going to look really nice. Well, let's look at the shamrock and see how nice that looks. You're going to have all that traffic coming across. You got people coming out, these trucks coming out of Shamrock in that one lane there, and then you're going to have the same vehicles coming out of the pilot, and they're all going to be turning right to get to the highway. There's going to be a light there. It's going to be there pretty fast. That's just what we need is a light, a light, a light, and another light. And see how that speeds up the traffic. All that's going to do is slow it down. If I'd have known we were going to have all that, I don't know if I'd have moved up to Promontory Point. I might have moved somewhere else. I like Colorado and I've been here most of my life. There's 3 generations living in my house of military. My father, my wife, myself, and my son. It's just, it's not what it used to be. I mean, I look at this town and I just think to myself, man, you know, when do you say enough's enough? It's not all about the dollars. Do we need money? Yeah, we need money. But you know what? We don't need the extra headaches either. You got all these people that moved here because they like the mountains, they like to be outdoors, they like the bicycles, they like to walk their kids, they like the safety. It's going out the door. It's just not there anymore. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Was there anybody else against? Seeing none, would anybody from the public like to speak for this?
I'm Heather Wellston, 646 Trumbull Lane. I don't know, maybe I didn't, sorry, I'm just trying to get my thoughts straight. Maybe I didn't hear all correctly, but I recall him saying several things about extra lanes being put in to help with the traffic. As far as safety, that's always a concern anywhere you move. Danger always grows. I mean, Colorado is one of the top 10, so more people moving here, the more dangerous it's going to be. To me, what I hear, and I purposely don't look at social media for the reason of last night. I did happen to look, and then hearing things today also. From what I hear, it sounds to me more of just a prejudice. It is, I'm very insulted with just assuming that truck drivers are going to be sex trafficking your children. They're going to be bringing drugs. It just, I don't know, it upsets me that they're good enough to truck in the lumber for your beautiful homes. They're good enough to truck in all your food, but it's not, they are not welcome to stay or shower and then be on their way. That bothers me very much. I think it's a good idea. I think our biggest thing for over a year has been water. I think the revenue that we bring in would be a great help, and maybe we could actually, I don't know, get water. That would be great. And you know, as far as the trails and stuff, I agree, we can still have all that. Maybe everybody can come to those meetings too instead of just these meetings. But I guess that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak for? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for additional questions, discussion, or a motion.
Do I get a chance to?
Would that be typical or? Okay.
Okay. So I tried to jot down some of the questions and comments, so apologize, but maybe going back and forth on some of them. So one of the items that was brought up was just the overall public process, and we met the public process. I think Jennifer and Larry can attest to that. In fact, we went above and beyond. Most of you received a voicemail from me. It's our protocol at Pilot Flying J to interact with the community leadership, the planning commission, the mayor, the board, the city council, and try to get input to have the best project that we can have and fit within the community. We were able to sit down with some of those leaders and we incorporate their comments. And some of those leaders were at the planning commission and attested to that we sat down with them and incorporated their comments. Jennifer and Larry can attest to that. We have been working on this project with staff for almost a year. Okay, and as that gentleman said, we've had boots on the ground all year. So this is not something that we've tried to hide by any shape, form, of the imagination. You know, we sat down with the mayor months ago. So, I mean, this is something, you know, that we did well in advance, and that's our standard protocol in order to become part of the community. So, one of the gentlemen mentioned pedestrian and bicycle traffic. Currently, he's correct. The sidewalks don't connect. There's no way to get across Baptist. That's actually part of our design. There'll be a pedestrian crossway. It'll be striped. There'll actually be a safety storage area off the median there. That's part of what we've agreed to with the county. So now those will connect. They'll actually, from an ADA standpoint, there'll be ADA ramps that will meet the criteria where a handicapped individual can now go along back this road where currently they cannot. Another thing I would say is we are building this infrastructure. So when you talk about Terrazzo building that road, building the utilities, we've estimated that to be $750,000 that we're paying for, we're constructing and dedicating over to the town. Okay, I didn't even talk about that earlier, but that's $750,003 of infrastructure right there that we're doing to kick this project and this future development off. From regard from traffic, there's been a lot of opinion shared, none of it backed up by fact. We have submitted a traffic report. It's right here. It's the same report that's been submitted to all stakeholders, the town, the county. CDOT's had an opportunity. When you look at this, I know it's hard to see from here, but when you look at our development, it's A's and B's. It's the same way you score a grade card, except the acceptable is A through D. It fails when it hits E and F. Okay? Not until you hit the 2040 projected traffic at that 1.5% growth rate, like I talked about earlier, does it fail. And it only fails at the roundabout, and then the signal will be warranted at that time. So again, guys, there's a lot of opinion, but the only thing that's backed up by fact and what is in the process of being approved and already reviewed multiple times by the stakeholders is this traffic report. Okay, and there has been no major comments. It's all been clarifications through the process. There was some misinformation. There's not 1,000 vehicles an hour. You know, I shared there's a total of 1,500 vehicles a day. When you get into traffic engineering, and as you guys are fully aware, just doing life, there's kind of AM and PM peak hours. Okay, so you know when everybody's trying to get their kids to school or get to work in the morning, that's the AM peak hour. When everybody's getting off work trying to get home, that's the PM peak hour. So if you're a truck driver and you make money by keeping the tires rolling and doors closed, are you going to be in congested areas during that time? You are not. You do not want to be on the road during that time. So I'm telling you, the trucking industry adjusts for those PM peak hours. It's just logical sense. It's how those guys make money. So you're going to be dealing with the auto user and the AM, PM peak hour. And I can tell you I've sat out there multiple times throughout this process. I sat out there today during the PM peak hour, and I maybe saw 5 vehicles total west of the ramps. heading west, okay? There's just not that much traffic. That's why CDOT, the county, built all this infrastructure to prepare for it. Another thing to note of that, if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else. You're going to deal with the traffic one way or another because that's why the infrastructure has been built. That's why now that property is on the market. If it's not us, somebody else is going to buy that. It's going to generate high traffic. And in your comp plan, it specifically states that use, that land, is supposed to be used for a high traffic use. Let's see. I don't know how to respond to the I-25 to Mexico comment. You've got the letters. Again, there's been a lot of opinion. Those are the towns, those are communities that I've been building in, and you can see there's not like I built there and then they wrote the letter the next day. Some years have gone by. So there's proof there. Monuments Code has minimum calipers of the trees. So I'm not just planting a tree like that, you know, a 2-year-old tree. I'm planting a caliper sized tree. Whatever that caliper is, we'll meet. Again, the town has a bond. I'm not sure what else I can do. You have an ordinance. This PD will be an ordinance. So if landscaping dies, per the ordinance, per the code, per the new regulation / law, you can make me go out there and fix that landscaping by law. We will work with law enforcement. I will go on record today saying we invite law enforcement on our site. We will work with them. They don't need to ask. They come on our site. If they want to come police and do whatever they want to do on a regular basis, feel free to. We're never going to stop it. Because again, we want to have a safe, clean, friendly facility. That's how we've separated and done business for a long time. Somebody made a comment, why do we need to sign? As I shared, we only have about 60% of our business under contract. So we still need to advertise it at 30 to 40%. That's how we make money. That's how we run a business, is advertising. We do not have security guards at the large majority of our facilities. I personally have been with Pilot 5 years. I've never built a facility where we put a security guard in. And I build multiple facilities a year. We do have impact fees. So when you talk about water rights and other infrastructure, as part of this project, we have to pay those impact fees where we're buying the water storage capacity, the sewer storage capacity. Again, we're already building some of that infrastructure for them, and that in itself is almost $250,000 that I'm spending. So again, guys, we're spending and dedicating over a lot of infrastructure, a lot of dollars, generating. You've heard multiple people here say we run a good operation. You know, we're not getting a lot of egg on our face for we run a poor operation. It's just not, they're just voicing it's not the right place. But yet 30 years and your own comp plan says this is the right place. And this is why we came before you and already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, because we agree with that. So I think that's about all I've got. Unless you got, this is Tim McConnell. He's with Drexel Barrel. He's our civil traffic engineer.
We've prepared the traffic study that, as Ross has mentioned, that was submitted. It's been reviewed by CDOT County. Permit that was mentioned earlier by Bart Banks, apologize. I think he thought Ross was mentioning to you guys a building permit we'd have in hand in the next couple days. Ross was only referencing the county access permit to Baptist Road. Baptist Road is a county jurisdictional roadway. It's owned and maintained by the county. You have to apply to them for an access permit to utilize that existing driveway stub to the south where Terrazzo Drive will go. We're in the final process of that. We have a few minor comments from them. I say the study has been reviewed by the county, CDOT, city staff, their review engineer. So everything is in conformance with those reviewing entities. So that was the permit he was saying. It wasn't trying to slight you guys with the process. We have to go through the county separately from the town of Monument. So just so you understand that process, since that is a county roadway. Ross already mentioned some of the traffic issues. The roundabout that the county, as Ross has mentioned too, was sized for one lane. When they originally went through that design, it was on the cusp of needing to go to 2 lanes. At some point in the future, as our traffic study states, that based on level of service, that may need to go to 2 lanes at that point in time. As long as that's still in the county jurisdiction, that will be their purview to go that route. Trees, our firm, our sub-consultant prepared the landscape plan as well. Ross mentioned, we'll put in minimum caliper per city standard, town standard. I know from experience living in the north end of town, north end of Colorado Springs myself, planted a bunch of spruce trees in my backyard. I planted them in 2001. They were 6 feet tall at that point in time. You can go with a larger tree as well if need be, if the town decides that. I just had one blown over when we had the 100-mile-an-hour winds. It was 30 feet tall, and that's, to just give you a time frame. My experience, I know it varies depending on soil and everything else, but these trees will be irrigated. We've got a landscape and irrigation plan prepared. We're submitted to the city as part of that process.
Well, it's already been submitted in the
Correct.
plan here.
Yep. And just follow up on the sign impact too. Talking a 60-foot sign. It sounds pretty tall. If you're a freestanding sign next to the interstate with nothing in the way. Our site sits 30 feet below the interchange. If you look at the grading plan we have. So you're really only going to have 30 feet of that sign visible above the overpass. And that's why it shows minimally in a lot of those images and renderings, because the site sits so far below the interchange where you head on to the southbound on-ramp onto I-25. So this is a frame of reference for that.
One thing I failed to mention earlier is the lady brought up lighting. So our lighting, like I said previously, they're crew fixtures, they're top of the line, cutoff type fixtures that actually meet other states' nightscape requirements. So they do not throw light up, they are all thrown down, and hence why they meet other states' nightscape requirements. They're state law.
And other than that, I do just on a personal note too, I have a surveyor. We do civil engineering and surveying, local firm. One of my surveyors was an over-the-road trucker for several years during the downturn in the economy. So I know from first-hand experience that a lot of them are professional. He's a professional surveyor, does surveying work for us all over the county. There are plenty of good people that are in the trucking business. That's their line of work, or that's what they could find. And I just want to throw that out there too. There are plenty of good people in the trucking business, not some of the horror stories you hear about drug trafficking, child trafficking, and everything else. So.
Thank you, John.
Anything else we can address for you guys?
Any more questions? Okay.
Thank you all. Appreciate the time.
Bring it back to the board for discussion.
Again, if I may.
Trustee Koopman, go ahead.
Will you be accepting comments, rebuttals to their comments?
I don't believe so. We're not.
Why not? You let them? I don't see it taking
Ms.
that long.
Corley?
You probably got one person.
I technically think we were supposed to limit the public comments to 3 minutes each. Again, and you asked for all opposition to it.
Okay, so you're saying no? No. Trustee Koopman?
Thank you. Thank you for your thorough presentation. Thank you to the community for all the feedback, pros and cons. Pilot, I would agree. Fine facilities. I have stopped at fine Pilot stops, good coffee. This is a tough decision. We, of course, are in representative government and are elected by the people to represent the people and the interests of the people. And that's a challenge, because you can't make everybody happy 100% of the time, and if you make one person happy, you're probably going to make 2 other people unhappy. It's just the way life works. I'm only one trustee. I only get 1 vote. There are 7 trustees, 6 present this evening. So what I look at is what the voice of the community is. As per our comprehensive plan, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of community feedback solicited with our comprehensive plan. And that document is an advisory document that we may use as a guide to advise us, and only advise us, as we make tough decisions like this. So the question I ask myself, because I'm the one who has to vote here, and again, have people who are happy and the people who are upset based on however I choose to vote. But the question I ask myself is it in substantial compliance with the updated comprehensive plan, our current comprehensive plan? That's the question I have to ask myself, and in order to answer that, I have to, what does my comprehensive plan, what does my guide say? So I thought I'd take a look, because I really wanted to make sure that this important decision is something that I believe I'm making the right decision, an educated decision. And our comprehensive plan has a community vision section. Again, a lot of months, a lot of time. I know Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Bornstein as well spent a significant amount of time with our community putting together a good updated comprehensive plan. Community vision states a new development should add to, not detract from, the quality of life and natural features cherished by the citizens of the town monument. Specific to land use, again, the intent, that word intent, the citizens of Monument recognize that the town will grow, but are determined to maintain the elements of place that create the quote-unquote small town atmosphere valued by our citizens. Small town feel, which creates a sense of community, the quality of life in the area, which includes the following attributes: location, views of the mountains, beauty, dark skies, and natural environment. Citizens remain concerned about the views one sees from the I-25 corridor, and views specific from the east side of I-25 toward the mountains, so looking west. These open lands are subject to development, as we're faced with here this evening, and could fundamentally change how the community is perceived. Again, going back to that aesthetics term, the intention purpose of our entire zoning laws, municipal code. Specifically, the citizens of Monument want to ensure that the views from I-25 corridor provide a strong small town community identity. This is a small town. I grew up in this small town. I remember when the only off-ramp from I-25 south was to a truck stop. Literally, it went to a truck stop. They improved that by closing that one down, making it have that big fancy roundabout, takes you into town to experience all of town. But again, you know, that way station is the first impression. Actually, the big digital billboard is our first impression of our community, followed by a line of gas station signs. And then the last is what we currently see is the Diamond Shamrock, which with this proposal would add another sign that we see of a gas station. So the first thing I'm seeing is a way station, some gas stations, a couple gas stations, and lastly a gas station as I work my way through town, as we of course invite growth, positive growth, responsible growth to our community. The question remains, is it in substantial compliance with the comprehensive plan? And reading verbatim from that comprehensive plan, does this new development add to and not detract from the quality of life and the natural features currently cherished by our residents? I'm not 100% convinced that it does. Those are my thoughts and my opinion.
Other comments?
Yeah, Ms. Clay, can you please let us know exactly what it is we're voting on? And that is not a rhetorical question, because there are rules that we need to follow in regards to properties or builders that want to come in and build in certain zoned areas, and if they meet the requirements, then we as a board are not able to pick and choose, say, I don't want a McDonald's, I want a Burger King. I don't want a Circle K, I want a Sunoco.
That's correct. You need to consider the evidence that was presented to you tonight and decide whether that evidence weighs in favor of your standards and criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan, and for whether the evidence presented is against that.
To clarify what you just said, if I may, the compliance and the substantial compliance with the comprehensive plan is a requirement that we may base our decisions on. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So, as presented by Ms. Jones, I didn't hear anything that would warrant us legally being able to state that this property doesn't meet requirements.
And Ms. Jones may be able to answer this better, because I don't have that page in front of me, as to whether she thought that this proposal was in conformance with the comprehensive plan or not. I believe that's in
I believe it's outlined in the staff report. Obviously, the comp plan is many pages, what is approximately 60 pages, so we can certainly discuss different sentences and topics discussed in there. Staff's position was that the comprehensive plan was in support of the project for various reasons, and then the specific final piece, site plan review criteria, outlined a number of issues for approval. I was going somewhere in this. Some of them are not applicable. Probably the last one is the most relevant to most of the discussion, which is the final PD site plan has been shown to fit within the context of the planned land use pattern and roadway and utility systems of the larger surrounding area. And there's a variety of them. We can go through them all if you would like, but there certainly are specific review criteria or approval criteria outlined in the code.
What I did hear earlier in your presentation is that that particular area where this would go in is zoned for this type of facility.
Per the comp plan or per the actual zoning?
Let's go with both. What's the answer?
I would say staff's opinion would be yes. The comprehensive plan calls it out as mixed use and light industrial in that sort of general area, or those are sort of general bubbles, which I think it clearly falls into both. There's discussion in the comp plan about these high traffic users and the highway corridor and the types of uses that are going to be in that area. And then per the zoning, it was currently zoned PID, which is a planned industrial district, which I would argue that this in some ways fits into, although because of that specific language, they're required to rezone it to PD tonight in order to develop it. And so then the PD district allows any type of use that they outline, essentially. So that was a very long-winded answer because it's not an easy yes or no. But again, staff's analysis through this entire project would be that, yes, it substantially meets the way we read the code and the comp plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
I guess I'd like to ask Ms. Corley. I'm concerned that there's so much concern expressed by the community members, and the request for some sort of a town meeting or something, a broader gathering, to allow them the opportunity to do more of what they've done here. I'm concerned, I guess, that we didn't seem to get at this in getting to where we are tonight. In other words, I don't like thinking that there's a gun to my head to vote a particular way because it fits the ordinance and it does everything that we say in our comprehensive plan. I'm concerned about what I've listened to here. And I'm concerned that what I want to know, do we have the opportunity? If I vote no, can it be because I want there to be further discussion to get this clarified and get the people to ask and vent and get the kind of explanations we've been given here, which I consider reasonable. But inside, I'm not too happy with what I've listened to from the community. I'm concerned about that, and I want to know what I can do and feel that I'm not doing something stupid. I mean, Trustee Elliott's exactly right. It meets the code. There are things we have to do. I know we've been told that. All I'm saying, one guy, I'm just saying I would like to see some more dialogue here. And I realize they've spent a lot of money, but the point is, pardon me?
Excuse me, sir.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I just want to know what we in fact can do and should do. And I mean, is that an unreasonable thing to vote no? Because what I would like to see is something more done to vent and air and resolve and at least do more due diligence. I'm concerned about that, that's all.
The town gave the proper notice and followed the proper procedures for this to come before the planning commission and to be set for hearing tonight. So I know people made some comments maybe that they didn't know about it, but we did everything that we were legally required to do and always follow the same procedure. So it's set for public hearing tonight for you to vote on it tonight, and you need to follow your town's codes and comprehensive plan in voting on it, based on the evidence that you heard tonight.
Thank you.
Chief, I'm gonna throw you under the bus here. We have a truck stop, existing truck stop within the town limits, yes?
That's correct.
Is it a hive of scum and villainy?
I can tell you, since 2016, from our records management system, I show a total of 4 criminal reports from January 2016 through today. It's only 4 total reports. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's 100% accurate because I don't know, but that's, in fact, I told this tonight. We show a shoplift in August, we show a robbery in July of 2017, and then in 16 we had another robbery and then a traffic accident. And that's been it as far as criminal reports. Now, officers have made contacts out there, citizen contacts, there's been some suspicious incidences out there, but according to my records management system, there's been no, when they got there was no criminal activity enough for them to take a police report.
Okay.
Now, somebody asked me, could there be an increase in crime? Well, anytime you have a growth, you're going to show some increase in crime. But if they run it the right way, and in fact, keep an eye on the facility and do their walk around like we're talking about. And the gentleman made a comment here about people camping out there. It's private property. I can't enforce that. That's up to the management to do a trespass letter on them. Then I can. So if the management of that facility makes a decision to kick those people out and to keep an eye on it, I have an idea that we'll have a low crime rate. I can't guarantee anything because it's dependent upon management and how they manage their facility. But our current facility, Diamond Shamrock, 4 criminal reports in a year and a half.
So no sex trafficking, no drug busts, no.
El Chapo.
Yeah, El Chapo wasn't driving through there.
No, but the one individual did make a comment that is valid, is I-25 is a major corridor for drug trafficking. It is. But have we had that hit our Diamond Shamrock? If it has, we haven't caught it, and people have called on suspicious incidences, and when we've shown up, we haven't found that.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to go with Mrs. Wilson's comments. I think there are a lot of people painting with a very broad brush tonight on the nature of truckers. I've gone to many a truck stop, and they're just regular people doing their job. There's not, I guess it's anecdotal, but backed up by the evidence that the chief provided, that there's not a rampant, sex trafficking, drug fueled den of iniquity that we have in our town. I'm sure Flying J is not going to accept that any more than Diamond Shamrock is going to accept that. Yeah, that's all I got right now.
I, like Trustee, excuse me, Medicott said, I've read a lot of the social media going on about this, and I saw a lot of unfactual, just hearsay thrown out, anything that would stick. I'm sure if it was a giant Starbucks, it would be fine. Does anybody else, do we want to make a motion?
Can you put a Starbucks in the pilot?
They're putting Dunkin' Donuts in.
There's one on every corner.
We actually tried, it didn't work out. And that's the truth.
Motion to approve ordinance 18-2017, an ordinance approving a rezoning final plat and final plan development site plan for a pilot travel center.
Second.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
No.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
No.
Was that 3-3?
Motion passes 4-3.
4-2.
Thank you guys for your time.
Next item on our agenda was our conduct for elected officials. We wanted to move that to a motion, or for a discussion, sorry. So would we like to skip to the motion before that?
No, I made a motion to change the.
Oh, handle the motion.
Yes, we have a motion below that. Would you
Oh,
like to do that
gotcha.
first?
Understand. Yes, thank you.
Ms. Corley, motion to set public hearing on petition for approval of service plan filed by Jackson Creek Metropolitan District.
Yes, Jackson Creek Metropolitan District has filed a service plan with the town, and we went over this a couple of weeks ago, that the statute requires certain notice requirements which have been set out, and I'm asking that you please set the public hearing for September 18th to consider that service plan.
Motion to set the hearing for September 18th.
Second.
Ms. Hogan.
Woohoo!
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Elliott.
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein.
Can I change to it?
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Koopman.
Yeah.
Trustee Medical.
Yes.
Okay. Public comments. Does the public have any comments?
I think they're
The public's,
gone.
but the important people are here.
Ms. Heisel, anything to say?
Me? I missed you guys. I haven't been here in a while. I did try coming last time, and we're done early.
Quick meeting.
I can't get here on time as a work.
We're out before 8 whenever you're not here. So.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you.
Where have you been?
Working most of the time after work day, a lot of times, especially being a mom.
When we've met you.
So.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Yes.
Lisa Hatfield, 660 Harness Road. I just wanted to comment. I noticed a change, and I've talked about this with Mr. Manning and Jennifer Koopman. I mean Koopman. That's Jennifer Jones. Sorry. And but I noticed it happened again tonight, where the what used to happen was the Planning Commission meeting minutes would be clearly typed up and given to you, and well, maybe not approved yet, but I think they were in draft form. Before you could review them, know what the vote was, and know what their comments were before you got your vote. In the last couple of years, that has changed. So now, because the reason that was given was the Planning Commission hasn't approved their minutes yet from the last meeting. So they'll approve them this month, and then you could see them next month. But by then, you've already voted. And then this confusion tonight about what the vote was. Well, it was 4-3. It was not 6-0-1. It was so that was upsetting to the public to feel like their vote hadn't been heard. Well, I'm not heard, but I just wanted to comment on that situation because I know it used to be a different way, and I'm observing that. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Seth. So moving into board authorizations.
Do we want to go back to, or do we want to?
Do you want to? I mean, we can add it in here.
I'm talking about, we want to go back to item 7, the discussion on code of conduct.
I had a question on this, please. I've got a flight very early in the morning, and if the board, if it was acceptable, maybe we could move this to the next meeting and give it due diligence, because I know we have executive session also tonight.
For item 7?
Yes.
It was your
motion to table.
Yeah, so I had motioned to change the discussion. What I would like to do, I guess, can I make a motion now rather than addressing 7? Can we add it as a discussion item, not on the 18th of September, but the following meeting after that?
Exactly what we were discussing. There's so much on the agenda for the 18th.
The other thing I would say is in between them, if you have individual pieces that you were probably going to discuss tonight, just so you can have a draft that's more getting at some of the issues that you all may want to tweak. If you could send those to Alicia individually, she can then you have a more robust, then you could maybe have it in a form where you might want to act on it, or if she can't get it done that night, you can get it closer.
We were discussing that, and we're postponing.
So we're all in agreement on
Yeah, we just
not
will
the
put it
18th?
on the first meeting in October.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board authorization items?
I just wanted to mention that Mrs. Evans Bugnall presented very detailed the Tri-Lake Silver Alliance presentation, and wanted to know if maybe financially the town was able to do something further for the organization for the elderly, and should that possibly be a discussion item on a future agenda?
Before you answer, I have to say, you said the same exact thing I wrote down.
Oh.
And that never
I'm
happens.
reading your notes.
So, yeah.
Well, actually, boy, we didn't discuss that. No, we discussed that. In fact, I'm a little ticked off because I told her to take the van.
I know, but it didn't have enough details.
I know, but I told her that we'd help with maintenance and things on that. I know we've got a mechanic or two we can fix it, but, well, I told you, don't not take the van. So, yeah, Melissa and I talked about increasing the commitment, and that's why I suggested to her that they review their budget. I received a copy of it and told her, make a request that you think is appropriate to the level of at least for a initial level of support as we try and find more ways to support that group and what they're doing. So right now, it's very easy to tell you if you'd like the 12,000 to discuss. I will already, in fact, I think Pam actually already does have it plugged in the 2018 budget. So as part of the logic scheme, you may already have that taken care of. In terms of what you have left this year, I'd have to review and tell you what I think that we could do at least to help them through the end of 2017. They've already received what you agreed to in the 2017 budget, but if there was an imminent need, or if we could help them financially to maybe assist with that repair on the van, if that was something they were still interested in doing. So I'll follow up on those two things if that gets you what you need.
That sounds great.
Yes.
I have a request of the board. We had directed town staff to give us a capital improvement projects presentation 18th.
Yeah.
Supposedly, according to town staff, it's a very large presentation. And I would suggest to the board that we allocate an hour before next September 18th meeting for a very 10,000-foot level overview with minimal questions, but we can write down our questions, and then a detailed workshop at a time to be determined by you. Is that acceptable to the board?
I would say yes, and I would say as long as we put an emphasis for the follow-up discussion, I'd say within max 2 weeks of that initial presentation. Ideally, I'd like to see it the following week, if that's possible.
I don't anticipate that it would. And you may get more time for questions, but Shay and I discussed that. I shared his concern that to give it thorough on each of the items, you're going to need more time. I think that the general fund capital improvement budget that you'll be considering as part of the budget is something that we probably don't need to spend a tremendous amount of time on. I don't see huge items, capital. Obviously, you'll spend some time, as you always do, as part of the regular budget process, but the water issues are where the major capital investment is contemplated. So once we give you the 10,000, and it'd be probably good to get some feedback from you after you've kind of received that information, and then the follow-up. My only thing of not committing to a appointment immediately after that is if you have follow-up stuff that takes us longer to get together. But we can certainly, plan to give it to you that meeting, or we can schedule. Staff's available anytime you want to meet. You don't necessarily have to wait for a Monday meeting. If you want to have an off Monday meeting to go on that after the 18th, we we could do that. It's just kind of all what works for your all schedules. So we'll tentatively plan for the presentation that Shay just described, be ready to follow up on what feedback we get before the next time, and we'll be ready to go at that next meeting. And if you feel that you need more, or if we feel we need more time, or if you need to spend more time on it, then the next meeting we can talk about scheduling.
Thank you. Any other board authorizations or board comments? Ms. Cole?
I do have a question. Number 11, you seem to see this quite a bit. Tri-View Metropolitan District Report. No report provided, no response or status update from Tri-View District Manager.
We had what she wrote down.
Well, I added the parentheses there. That's new, so that's not a repeat. I don't remember whether they've had one meeting. I know trustees Murphy and Bornstein and I and Larry were at one. That has been since I discussed this with Valerie on the phone. She was going to talk to the board about that. I don't know, never received any feedback. She's never reported back to me, and I haven't received a report. So I don't know whether they've discussed it or not, but certainly they've had either a meeting or two in between the time that she and I discussed that. I suspect that it's been two, because I called right after, I think it was Trustee Elliott who had brought that up even further back. So I don't know what more I can do. I know that I have spoken to a couple of their board members upon their board members contacting me. So I know I didn't discuss that specifically, but I think they have some board members that are open to some dialogue.
Well, I think, didn't we, when Reed and Valerie were here giving their update, weren't they all on board with us having a semi-annual, annual, quarterly powwow together, and then dust in the wind? And
That was just
that
for
was
show.
great.
That was last
That was for show at the time.
end of the year.
Well, that was probably over a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing since.
And to be honest with you, I haven't received a response. I've offered to go over there and give a report on what we're doing, and have not gotten anything back from them on that either. So it takes two to tango. Right now, we ain't dancing.
But I will say, Mr. Manning gave an excellent presentation to him, and he even gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah.
And their board didn't even know how to handle it.
Yeah. We did. We were the full front foot, bro.
Yeah, we were howling, and they just like,
That's it.
no one's ever applauded for us.
Making them blush.
No, he did a great job.
Any other trustee comments?
I do have one. I'm getting a lot of resident feedback on weed problem, and specifically the lack of beautification down the 105 corridor, down the heart of town. We have a weed ordinance on the books. I don't know if they're in compliance or out of compliance. It says if they're out of compliance, we can actually do it and back charge them for it.
I don't know where the 9-inch, they've got to have 9-inch weeds
Right.
along that. And also, the county is responsible to maintain 105, except for areas where
Even in town, by like Safeway and.
except where we've got control of the roads. So in our town limits, we can maintain those if we had to. But I understood, I heard the same rumblings of those issues. You know, I drove the corridor myself today just to look at it. Safeway doesn't have what I would consider a weed issue. I didn't see anything 9 inches tall. Of course, I didn't get out and measure it, but so, you know, the McDonald's maintains its property. I mean, I guess those specific complaints need to go to Laura, and we'll get them to Susie, or they can go directly to Susie. And that's the information on the website. They can contact her on the email on the website. So we definitely will get her aggressively responding to those complaints. I guess what I'm saying is, at least in our areas of control, I don't see a lot of lack of compliance. And Mr. Tharnish, did you have anything to, since we had kept you here so long, do you have anything you'd like to share on that additionally?
Glad you asked.
Let's get a list.
When it comes to weeds, our main concerns are the right-of-ways and the town properties that we have control of. Both are which are really small compared to the areas that CDOT and the county control. Our areas of concern are the Second Street right-of-way where all the Christmas trees get lit up. We try to stay on top of that. We have some smaller sidewalk sections where we get some weeds going to occur in the sidewalk sometimes. We're addressing those. One of the problems we typically run into this time of year is all of our summer kids are gone. And normally in the summer, that's one of their big priorities, to take care of the weeds and to do all the mowing. We do have a couple of kind of 1.5 people temporarily through October. So we are keeping on top of stuff that is within our control. A lot of times the question I get is, that looks really bad, can we do anything about it? Well, yes, we can go mow it, but then we're stepping on someone else's jurisdiction. It becomes an issue if you do it all the time, because then they're going to expect you to do it all the time. We have certain agreements in place, for example, for the parking ride, where since they gave us that land to put our boat fuel station, we maintain that by cutting weeds and keeping the trash can in the station. The other areas that sometimes come up are areas, especially in July when we get on a parade route. Of course, we take care of those whether they're ours or not, because that's part of bringing the attraction to the town. When it comes down to anything that gets too high, then we would address that through the code enforcement person. And he is right, the ordinance that states 9 inches or greater, then either taken care of or the town will end up using more or less an abatement process. Or we would take care of it and then we would charge whoever owns that time and materials. So, I think we did a pretty good job this summer and everything that was within our jurisdiction. But issues that do come up, we tend to handle on a case-by-case basis. So if there's an area of concern and that the owner is refusing to do it, then it usually comes down to making a decision. We do it regardless and do an abatement. So when it comes to weeds, I guess the best thing I can tell you is I believe we did a pretty good job this whole summer. We may have some areas that are getting a little weedy now, mainly because we don't have the resources that we have in the summer. We have about 8 kids dedicated to that. But if you know of areas, and we do have a trouble reporting system built in our website. If people have complaints, they fill it out electronically. It immediately comes to our admin and gets put on my desk. So I can assign it to somebody to investigate. That's how we're handling weed issues as they come up. And if code enforcement contacts us, of course, we get on that too.
I think several of the comments were from people who should not be named, and their side of the thing, and Trustee Bornstein is taking pictures of the weeds. Where? By your house.
Oh, gee.
Try to.
So, anyway, thank you, gentlemen, I appreciate it.
You good?
Yep.
Ms. Corley, will you take us into executive session?
Yes, I recommend executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 2046-402 4B for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, the Forest View Estates lawsuit. And we do not need an executive session for the second item listed on the agenda tonight.
Motion to move into executive session?
Second, if it's 10 minutes or less.
Will do. Will do. Trustee Wilson?
What?
Vote for that? Okay, do we have a motion in a second?
You have to really
Just
like-
say yes.
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?